Hey guys! Tonight, you are not a king, a knight, or a wealthy merchant. Instead, you are about to spend one ordinary day as a medieval monk, where the loudest sound is the toll of a distant bell, your greatest luxury is a warm bowl of pottage, and every hour of your life is guided by prayer, work, and quiet reflection. Before that, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and let me know in the comment where you tuning from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who is joining us from around the world. So, dim the lights, settle into a comfortable position, and let the outside world slowly fade away. Together, we'll step through the monastery gates and experience a single day in the life of a medieval monk, from the first bell before dawn to the final whispered prayer beneath a sky filled with stars. Our journey begins long before the sun has even considered rising. Before dawn with the first bell. Awakening in the darkness. Long before the first hint of daylight reaches the horizon, while the villages beyond the monastery walls remain wrapped in deep sleep, your day quietly begins. There is no alarm clock waiting on a wooden table. No rooster has yet announced the coming morning. Instead, somewhere beyond the thick stone walls, a single bronze bell breaks the silence. Its slow, measured toll rolls gently across the sleeping countryside, drifting over misty fields, quiet forests, and narrow streams before returning to the monastery like an echo from another world. 1. Pause. 2. Pause. 3. The sound is neither hurried nor harsh. It simply announces that another day of prayer has begun. Your eyes slowly open. The dormitory is almost completely dark, save for the faint glow of a small oil lamp near the doorway. Shadows dance softly across the rough stone walls as dozens of fellow monks begin to stir without a word. There is no conversation, no groaning about waking too early, and certainly no requests for just 5 more minutes. After years of following the same rhythm, each monk rises almost instinctively, as though the bell itself has become part of his heartbeat. You sit up on your simple wooden bed. Comfort, by medieval standards, is a modest thing. Your mattress is little more than a cloth sack filled with straw, perhaps refreshed once or twice each year. The wool blanket is coarse against your skin, offering warmth without softness. During winter, the cold seems to seep directly through the stone walls, lingering in every corner of the room. On particularly icy mornings, your breath briefly appears as a pale cloud before disappearing into the darkness. Yet no one complains. To the monks, discomfort is not an enemy but a quiet teacher, reminding them to seek contentment not in luxury but in simplicity. Slowly, you place your bare feet onto the cool stone floor. It sends a small shiver through your body, quickly encouraging you to stand. Around you, the other brothers move with calm familiarity. One folds his blanket neatly. Another quietly adjusts the hood of his habit. An elderly monk pauses for a brief silent prayer before taking his first step. No instructions are needed. Every movement has been repeated thousands of times before. You reach for your clothing. Unlike the colorful garments worn by wealthy nobles or prosperous merchants, your habit is plain and practical. It is made from thick, undyed wool, its natural brown or gray color reflecting humility rather than fashion. Around your waist, a simple rope belt is tied with practiced ease. There are no embroidered sleeves. No polished boots. No jeweled rings. In fact, one of the quiet goals of monastic life is to own as little as possible. The fewer possessions you have, the fewer distractions can pull your thoughts away from prayer. Your clothing serves only one purpose: to keep you warm enough to work and worship. Nothing more. Nothing less. The dormitory itself is remarkably simple. Rows of narrow beds stretch from one end of the room to the other beneath heavy wooden beams blackened by centuries of smoke from nearby fireplaces. Small windows, little more than narrow openings in the stone, admit only the faintest hint of moonlight. Outside, the world remains still. The stars continue their slow journey across the sky. A cool breeze rustles the leaves of ancient oak trees beyond the monastery walls. Somewhere far away, an owl calls once before silence gently settles again. You walk toward a small basin filled with cold water collected from the monastery well. There is no steaming bath waiting this morning. Daily bathing was uncommon in much of medieval Europe, especially during colder months, though monasteries often maintained better standards of cleanliness than many surrounding communities. Even so, washing before prayer is usually brief. The icy water splashed across your face is enough to chase away the last traces of sleep. You dry your hands on a simple linen cloth before joining the quiet line of monks making their way through the corridor. Only the soft sound of sandals touching worn stone accompanies your footsteps. The passageways are illuminated by flickering candles placed in iron holders along the walls. Their warm light reveals weathered stone polished smooth by generations of monks who have walked this very path for centuries. Perhaps 100 years ago, another brother followed these same corridors. Perhaps 200 years before that, another did exactly the same. The monastery changes very little. Its rhythm remains constant while kingdoms rise and fall beyond its gates. As you pass into the open cloister, the cool night air greets you once more. The square courtyard rests peacefully beneath the fading stars. At its center stands a modest garden where herbs grow neatly beside a small stone fountain. Even in darkness, the scent of rosemary, lavender, and damp earth lingers gently in the air. Soon, these gardens will fill with birdsong and the warmth of morning sunlight. For now, they belong entirely to the night. Ahead, the church doors stand open. Golden candlelight spills softly onto the worn stone path, inviting every monk inside. Without speaking, you step across the threshold, leaving behind the sleeping world beyond the monastery walls. The first prayers of the day are about to begin, and with them, the peaceful rhythm that will guide every hour until night returns once again. Matins, the first prayer before sunrise. You pause for a brief moment at the great oak doorway before stepping inside the monastery church. Behind you, the world is still asleep. Farmhouses remain dark beneath the stars. Shepherds have not yet led their flocks into the fields. Bakers have not begun kneading their dough, and merchants have not opened the shutters of their shops. Even the birds seem reluctant to disturb the silence that blankets the countryside. Within these thick stone walls, however, another day has already begun. The air changes the instant you enter. Outside, the night carries the cool scent of damp grass and earth after the evening dew. Inside, the church is filled with the faint fragrance of melted beeswax, old timber, cool limestone, and a whisper of incense left lingering from the previous evening's prayers. Hundreds of candles flicker gently throughout the building. Their light is soft rather than bright, casting long golden shadows that stretch across the floor like quiet rivers. Every movement seems slower beneath their glow, as though time itself has chosen to walk rather than run. You quietly lower your hood. Without exchanging a single word, each monk walks toward his familiar place in the choir stalls that line both sides of the church. These beautifully carved wooden seats have supported generations of weary brothers, their polished surfaces bearing the marks of countless hands, folded in prayer through the centuries. No one rushes. There is no race to arrive first. There is no anxiety about being late. The rhythm of monastic life has taught everyone that each moment deserves to be entered with patience. You take your place among the others. The silence is profound. It is not an awkward silence waiting to be broken by conversation. Instead, it is a peaceful silence, one that feels full rather than empty. In the monastery, silence is considered a companion rather than something to fear. It allows the mind to become still and the heart to notice things easily missed amid constant noise. For a few quiet moments, nothing happens. The only sounds are the gentle crackling of candle flames and the distant sigh of the wind brushing against the church roof. Then, slowly, the abbot rises. His movements are calm, practiced, and almost unhurried, as though he has performed this same ritual every morning for a lifetime which, in many ways, he has. He bows his head. The other monks do the same. And then, almost as softly as the breeze outside, the first words of matins are spoken. A single voice begins. Another joins. Then another. Within moments, dozens of voices weave together into a slow, steady chant that fills the ancient church. The Latin words may not be familiar to every modern listener, yet the melody itself needs no translation. It rises gently toward the stone ceiling before drifting back down again, echoing through every archway and corridor. The sound is neither dramatic nor theatrical. It is calm, measured, almost like the steady breathing of the monastery itself. You join the chant. At first, your voice feels small among so many others, but soon it blends seamlessly into the whole. No individual voice seeks attention. Each brother sings not to be heard alone, but to become part of something larger than himself. It is a reminder that life within the monastery is built upon community rather than individual achievement. Outside these walls, people may compete for wealth, titles, or influence. Inside, humility is considered the greater treasure. The service continues with readings from the Psalms. These ancient songs have been recited for hundreds of years before your own lifetime, and they will continue long after you are gone. Every generation of monks inherits the same words, finding comfort in their familiar rhythm. As the reading continues, your eyes wander briefly toward one of the narrow stained glass windows. Beyond it, the sky remains almost completely black. Only a faint ribbon of deep blue has begun to appear along the eastern horizon. Dawn is still some distance away. The monastery intentionally gathers before sunrise because these quiet hours are believed to belong especially to reflection. Before the demands of work arrive, before conversations begin, before the world becomes busy, the mind is free to settle into stillness. It is a peaceful way to greet the day. You notice an elderly monk standing a few places away. His beard has turned almost entirely white, and gentle lines cover his face like the rings inside an ancient tree. He has probably heard these same prayers tens of thousands of times. Yet there is no sign of boredom. Instead, each word is spoken with quiet sincerity. Perhaps repetition has not made the prayers less meaningful. Perhaps it has allowed them to sink more deeply into the heart. A younger novice nearby follows carefully from a handwritten manuscript. Every now and then he hesitates, trying to remember the next line before quickly finding his place again. The older monks seem not to notice. Everyone here was once a beginner. Learning patience is simply another part of the journey. The chanting gradually gives way to a period of complete silence. No instructions are given. None are needed. Each monk simply bows his head. For several minutes, the church becomes almost perfectly still. In today's world, such silence might feel unusual. Many people rarely experience even a single minute without music, conversation, or the glow of a screen. For the medieval monk, however, silence is woven naturally into everyday life. It is during these quiet moments that thoughts settle like snowflakes upon a winter field. The worries of yesterday slowly loosen their grip. Tomorrow's uncertainties are gently placed aside. Only this present moment remains. A tiny movement catches your attention. One candle near the altar flickers as a cool draft slips beneath the heavy wooden door. Its flame bends for an instant before standing upright once again. The sight is strangely comforting. Like the monks themselves, the flame may sway with the passing wind, yet it continues to burn steadily. Soon, the first notes of Lauds begin. Where Matins welcomes the deep stillness of night, Lauds greets the promise of morning. As the chants continue, the darkness outside slowly begins to soften. The stars fade one by one. The eastern sky turns from black to indigo, then from indigo to gentle shades of blue and pale silver. A robin sings somewhere beyond the cloister garden. Another answers from the orchard. The monastery seems to awaken together with the countryside. Golden rays of sunlight finally slip through the stained glass windows, painting delicate patterns of red, blue, and amber across the worn stone floor. Dust motes drift lazily through the beams of light like tiny stars suspended in the air. The church, which only moments ago belonged entirely to the night, now welcomes a new day. The final prayer is spoken. Once again, silence settles over the congregation. The abbot bows. The brothers bow in return. There is no applause. No announcement. No sense that something has ended. Instead, the prayers simply flow into the next part of the day as naturally as a river continues its journey downstream. One by one, the monks quietly leave their choir stalls. Their footsteps echo gently through the church before disappearing into the monastery corridors. The first prayers have nourished the spirit. Now, as the sun rises over the monastery gardens, another gentle rhythm awaits the simple morning meal, shared in silence, where even a humble piece of bread becomes part of the day's quiet devotion. A morning of simplicity. The humble meal. The final echoes of the morning chants fade gently into silence as you step out of the church and into the monastery cloister. The world has changed while you were at prayer. Only a short while ago, the monastery rested beneath a blanket of stars. Now, the eastern sky glows with soft shades of gold and pale pink. A cool mist still clings to the herb garden, wrapping the rosemary, sage, and lavender in tiny sparkling droplets. Beyond the stone walls, the first rays of sunlight stretch across quiet fields where the day's work has yet to begin. The air feels fresh, carrying the scent of damp earth, wild flowers, and freshly cut wood from the monastery's storehouse. A blackbird begins its cheerful morning song from the branch of an old apple tree. Another answers from somewhere near the orchard. For a brief moment, it seems as though even nature has joined the monastery's morning prayers. You walk slowly alongside the other monks beneath the covered cloister. The stone floor beneath your sandals has been worn smooth by countless generations who have followed this very same path. Some of these stones may have felt the footsteps of monks 200 years ago. Others may have witnessed entire kingdoms rise and fall while remaining quietly in place. The monastery measures time differently from the outside world. Kings count years by battles won. Merchants count them by profits earned. But here, time is measured by bells, prayers, harvests, and seasons. Each sunrise is welcomed much like the one before it, and that gentle repetition brings an unexpected sense of peace. No one hurries toward breakfast. There is no queue formed with impatient shuffling or whispered complaints about hunger. The brothers walk at an easy pace, their habits swaying softly with each step. Conversation remains absent. This is not because the monks dislike one another. Quite the opposite. They share nearly every hour of every day together. Yet many medieval monasteries observed periods of intentional silence, believing that unnecessary speech could distract both the speaker and the listener from thoughtful reflection. It may seem unusual to modern ears. Today, breakfast often arrives accompanied by conversations, newspapers, music, or the gentle glow of a mobile phone screen. For a medieval monk, however, the morning meal is another opportunity to practice gratitude. Soon, the doorway to the refectory comes into view. The refectory is the monastery's dining hall, though calling it grand would be an exaggeration. Its walls are built of the same sturdy stone as the church, giving the room a cool, steady temperature throughout much of the year. High wooden beams support the roof overhead, darkened over time by smoke from countless winters. Narrow windows allow shafts of gentle morning light to spill across the long oak tables. Everything inside serves a purpose. There are no elaborate decorations. No expensive tapestries. No silver chandeliers glittering overhead. Simplicity is not considered a sacrifice here. It is a way of keeping the mind focused on what truly matters. The monks quietly take their seats on long wooden benches. Each brother knows exactly where to sit. The arrangement rarely changes. Even after many years, the familiar place at the table becomes part of the comforting rhythm of daily life. You lower yourself onto the bench. The wood creaks softly beneath your weight. In front of you rests a simple wooden bowl, a small clay cup, and a coarse piece of linen that serves as a napkin. There are no polished forks. No gleaming knives laid out with ceremony. In fact, forks are still centuries away from becoming common across much of Europe. Most meals are eaten with fingers, a spoon, or a shared knife when necessary. The simplicity feels strangely refreshing. There is very little to distract you from the food itself. A young novice quietly enters carrying a large basket filled with fresh bread. The loaves are dark in color, baked from rye or barley rather than the fine white wheat enjoyed by wealthy nobles. Their crusts are thick and slightly crisp, while the inside remains dense and hearty. One by one, each monk receives a modest portion. Another novice follows with a large earthenware pot containing warm pottage. If there is one dish that truly defines medieval cooking, it is pottage. Day after day, it appears on tables across Europe in one form or another. It is not a single recipe but a way of cooking. Vegetables gathered from the monastery garden, perhaps onions, leeks, cabbage, peas, beans, or carrots are slowly simmered together in a large pot. Sometimes barley or oats are added to make it more filling. On feast days, small pieces of fish or meat may find their way into the broth, though such occasions are relatively rare. The result is humble but nourishing. It warms the hands as much as the stomach. The pleasant aroma of herbs rises gently from the bowl. You notice flecks of parsley floating upon the surface. Perhaps there is a hint of thyme gathered only yesterday from the monastery garden. Nothing is wasted. Every herb has been carefully grown. Every vegetable patiently tended. The meal before you represents months of quiet labor in the fields. A brother places a small piece of mild cheese beside your bread. Goat's cheese is common in many monasteries, though the exact varieties differ depending upon the region. Nearby, another monk fills your clay cup. Surprisingly, it is not water. Instead, it contains weak ale. To modern listeners, this may sound unusual, but medieval drinking water was not always clean or safe. Brewing ale helped make drinking safer in many places, and monastery breweries became well known for producing wholesome, low-alcohol beverages suitable for everyday meals. The drink is mild, gentle, more nourishing than intoxicating. Once everyone has been served, the room becomes perfectly still. No one reaches immediately for the bread. No spoon enters a bowl. Instead, the abbot slowly stands. He bows his head. The other monks follow. Together, they offer a short prayer of thanks not only for the food itself, but for the fields that produced it, the rain that nourished the crops, the brothers whose hands prepared the meal, and the Creator believed to have provided every blessing. Only after the prayer ends does breakfast begin. You tear a piece from the dark loaf. Its crust cracks softly between your fingers. The inside is warm and pleasantly fragrant. You dip it into the steaming pottage, allowing it to soak up the rich broth before taking your first bite. The flavors are simple. Earthy vegetables, Fresh herbs. Warm grain. Nothing is extravagant. Yet after rising long before dawn and spending hours in prayer, it tastes remarkably satisfying. Perhaps true contentment comes not from abundance, but from appreciation. Around you, dozens of monks eat quietly. No one rushes. There is no competition for larger portions. Each bite is slow and deliberate. Every meal is treated almost as another form of meditation. Outside the narrow windows, the monastery continues to awaken. Sunlight spreads across the cloister garden. Bees begin their busy work among the lavender blossoms. A pair of sparrows land briefly upon the stone wall before darting into the orchard. The entire world seems to move with gentle purpose. Soon, breakfast will continue with another cherished monastic tradition, one that transforms an ordinary meal into an opportunity for learning. While the brothers eat in silence, a single voice will rise above the quiet, reading sacred texts aloud, reminding everyone that just as the body is nourished by bread, the mind and spirit are nourished by wisdom. And so, with your simple meal before you and the peaceful sounds of morning surrounding the monastery, sacred reading and the quiet art of listening. The gentle clink of wooden spoons against earthenware bowls is almost the only sound in the refectory. Around you, dozens of monks continue their breakfast in complete silence. There is no idle conversation drifting from one end of the table to the other. No cheerful gossip about yesterday's work in the gardens. No discussion of the weather, the harvest, or the latest news from the nearby town. For someone visiting the monastery for the first time, the silence might seem almost astonishing. Surely, after rising long before dawn and spending hours in prayer, the brothers would have plenty to say to one another. Yet they do not. And that silence is entirely intentional. You take another slow bite of the warm rye bread, letting it soak up the last of the fragrant pottage. The simple meal is satisfying without being excessive, leaving neither hunger nor heaviness behind. It provides exactly what is needed for the work that lies ahead. Nothing more. Nothing less. The rule of Saint Benedict, which guides many monasteries across medieval Europe, teaches that moderation is a faithful companion. Food should sustain the body, but it should never become its master. Too little weakens the monk, making prayer and labor difficult. Too much clouds the mind, encouraging laziness and comfort. Balance is quietly celebrated. As you continue eating, the abbot gives a slight nod toward a young monk seated on a small raised platform at one side of the hall. Without hesitation, the brother stands. He carries a beautifully bound manuscript in both hands, treating it with the same care another person might reserve for a priceless treasure. In many ways, it is. Books in the medieval world are astonishingly rare. Unlike today, when a single device can hold thousands of volumes, every manuscript must be copied by hand, one careful letter after another. Months, sometimes even years, are devoted to creating a single book. Every page represents countless hours of patient work. Every sentence has passed beneath the steady hand of a scribe. Every illustration has been painted with remarkable precision. The monk carefully opens the manuscript upon a wooden stand. The room grows even quieter, if such a thing is possible. Then he begins to read. His voice is calm, measured, neither hurried nor dramatic. He is not performing for an audience. He is simply allowing the words to fill the room like gentle morning sunlight. Today's reading comes from the Psalms, followed by passages describing the lives of early Christian saints, men and women remembered for their compassion, humility, courage, and unwavering faith. As his voice rises and falls in a steady rhythm, the monks continue eating. No one looks toward the reader. Most keep their eyes lowered to their bowls. Listening, after all, requires no staring. It requires attention. The words drift gently across the hall. Some speak of patience during hardship. Others describe kindness shown to strangers. Still others remind the listener that even the smallest acts of goodness may carry lasting meaning. The stories are familiar. Many of the older monks have heard them hundreds of times. Yet familiarity has not stolen their value. If anything, repetition has allowed the lessons to settle more deeply into their hearts. You find yourself reflecting on how different this is from the outside world. In the nearby market town, breakfast might be noisy. Merchants call out to customers before the sun has climbed high into the sky. Blacksmiths begin hammering glowing iron upon their anvils. Children laugh as they chase one another through narrow streets. Wagons rumble over uneven roads. Dogs bark. Chickens scatter. The village wakes with energy. Here, within the monastery walls, the day awakens almost like a whispered prayer. Even eating becomes an opportunity for quiet reflection. You glance briefly toward the windows. Golden morning light now fills the room more fully than before. Tiny dust particles float lazily through the sunbeams, drifting so slowly they almost seem suspended in time. Outside, the herb garden has become alive with activity. Honeybees move carefully from lavender blossom to lavender blossom. A pair of robins hop across the stone pathway, pausing now and then as if inspecting the neat rows of rosemary and sage. Beyond the walls, you can just make out the distant outline of farmers leading oxen toward their fields. Their own day of labor has begun. Soon, yours will too. The reader gently turns another page. The soft rustle of parchment echoes briefly before his steady voice resumes. You cannot help but admire the manuscript itself. Although you are seated too far away to see every detail clearly, you know what waits upon its pages. Large decorated letters painted in brilliant reds and blues. Tiny vines curling along the margins. Delicate flowers. Golden leaf that catches candlelight like sunlight upon water. Each decoration has been added not for vanity, but to honor the sacred words it surrounds. Some manuscripts even contain tiny, amusing illustrations hidden among the margins. A rabbit chasing a hunter. A snail confronting a knight. A monkey playing a musical instrument. Modern historians still smile when discovering these playful little drawings tucked quietly into otherwise serious books. Even monks, it seems, occasionally appreciated a gentle sense of humor. Your thoughts drift for a moment toward the scriptorium where many of these books are created. Later today, some of the brothers will spend hours copying new manuscripts with careful hands. Their work will preserve history, literature, music, and knowledge that might otherwise disappear forever. Without realizing it, these quiet men living behind monastery walls are becoming guardians of memory itself. Generations yet unborn will one day read words preserved because a patient monk refused to rush his work. The reader reaches another familiar passage. His voice remains perfectly even. There is no dramatic flourish. No attempt to impress. Only clarity. Only peace. Listening in this way requires practice. Your mind occasionally wanders. You notice the warmth of the bread, the pleasant scent of herbs, the sunlight reaching farther across the stone floor. Then, gently, your attention returns to the reading. No frustration. Simply a quiet return. Perhaps this is one of the hidden lessons of monastic life. The goal is not perfect concentration. The goal is patiently returning whenever the mind begins to wander. It is a lesson that remains surprisingly timeless. Outside, the monastery bell rings once. Its clear tone carries through the open windows before slowly fading across the surrounding countryside. The breakfast hour is nearing its end. One by one, the brothers finish the last pieces of bread. Wooden spoons scrape gently across nearly empty bowls. Nothing is wasted. Leftover crumbs are carefully gathered. Food has required months of labor to produce, and every morsel is treated with respect. The reader closes the manuscript. The heavy wooden covers meet with a soft, satisfying thud. He bows his head. The abbot offers a final prayer of thanksgiving. Together, the monks quietly rise from their benches. Some carry bowls toward the kitchens. Others wipe the long wooden tables until they are spotless once more. No task is considered beneath anyone. The youngest novice and the oldest monk share equally in the responsibilities of the community. As you step outside the refectory, the sun has climbed comfortably above the eastern hills. Its warmth now reaches the cloister, illuminating every archway and every weathered stone. The peaceful stillness of breakfast slowly gives way to gentle activity. Some brothers walk toward the herb gardens. Others make their way to the barns. A few disappear into workshops where bread will be baked, candles made, or tools repaired. The monastery is awakening fully now. Prayer has nourished the soul. Breakfast has strengthened the body. Soon, another quiet truth of monastic life will reveal itself that for a medieval monk, work is not a distraction from faith. It is simply another way of praying. And with the morning sun shining softly upon the ancient stones, you follow the others toward the gardens, where the peaceful labor of a new day is ready to begin. Work as prayer. Fields, gardens, and the gentle rhythm of labor. As you leave the refectory, the warmth of the morning sun greets you like an old friend. Only a few hours ago, the monastery rested beneath a sky filled with stars, its stone walls wrapped in darkness and silence. Now, the entire landscape seems to glow with quiet life. Golden light spills over the rooftops, soft mist rises from the surrounding fields, and tiny drops of dew shimmer on every blade of grass like scattered pearls. The air is wonderfully fresh. It carries the earthy fragrance of damp soil, blooming wildflowers, freshly cut timber, and herbs growing in neat rows within the monastery gardens. A robin sings from the branch of an ancient apple tree. Nearby, a pair of swallows dart gracefully through the morning sky, chasing insects that dance above the fields. Somewhere beyond the monastery walls, you hear the distant lowing of cattle and the rhythmic creak of a wooden cart beginning its slow journey toward the nearby village. The world has awakened. And now, so has the monastery. Around you, the brothers quietly make their way toward their daily responsibilities. Unlike many people beyond these walls, no one rushes anxiously from one task to another. There are no shouted instructions, no frantic attempts to finish everything before midday. The pace remains calm, steady, purposeful. Every monk knows where he is needed. There is a quiet confidence in that certainty. The rule of Saint Benedict teaches a simple idea that shapes every hour of life within these walls. To work is to pray. This does not mean every task is accompanied by spoken prayers. Rather, it means that honest labor, performed with humility and care, becomes an offering in itself. Digging a garden bed, repairing a fence, harvesting onions, sweeping a stone corridor. Each task, however ordinary it may seem, carries equal dignity when performed with patience and gratitude. It is a remarkably different way of seeing work. Outside the monastery, labor is often driven by survival, taxes, or the demands of a feudal lord. Inside, work becomes another path toward inner peace. You join several brothers walking toward the monastery gardens. The path winds gently through the cloister before opening onto a wide stretch of cultivated land. Here, nature has been carefully shaped by generations of patient hands. Rows of vegetables extend neatly across the rich brown soil. Cabbages sit like green crowns beneath the morning sun. Leeks sway gently in the breeze. Broad beans climb simple wooden poles. Carrots, onions, turnips, peas, and parsnips quietly wait beneath the earth, slowly gathering strength for the coming harvest. Nothing has appeared here by accident. Every seed was planted by hand. Every weed patiently removed. Every watering carried out long before dawn or late in the cool evening. Monastic gardens are more than sources of food. They are living classrooms. Each season teaches something different. Spring speaks of hope. Summer rewards patience. Autumn reminds everyone to prepare wisely. Winter encourages endurance. The monastery lives according to these gentle lessons year after year. An elderly monk smiles warmly as he hands you a simple wooden hoe. Its handle is smooth from decades of use. The polished wood fits comfortably into your hands, shaped by the countless fingers that have held it before yours. Without a word, he gestures toward a row of young vegetables. The meaning is perfectly clear. Together, you begin loosening the soil around the plants. The work is neither difficult nor hurried. Each movement follows the last with quiet rhythm. Lift. Press. Turn the earth. Step forward. Repeat. After only a few minutes, you begin to notice something unexpected. Your breathing slows naturally. The steady movements calm your thoughts. The sound of the hoe cutting gently through the soft earth blends with birdsong until both become part of the same peaceful melody. Perhaps this is why many monks find joy in manual labor. The body remains occupied. The mind becomes still. Occasionally, another brother passes carrying a woven basket filled with herbs freshly gathered from the medicinal garden. You recognize the familiar fragrance of rosemary. Then thyme. Mint. Sage. Lavender. Calendula blossoms glow like little suns among the green leaves. These herbs serve many purposes. Some flavor the monastery's meals. Others become medicines for headaches, fevers, stomach ailments, or wounds. Long before modern hospitals, monasteries often became places where knowledge of healing plants was carefully preserved. Nearby, several younger novices gently water delicate seedlings using wooden buckets drawn from the monastery well. The buckets are surprisingly heavy. Yet none of the boys complain. Their faces reveal quiet concentration rather than frustration. An older monk patiently demonstrates how to pour slowly, allowing the water to soak deep into the soil instead of washing it away. Teaching rarely happens through lectures alone. Most lessons here are learned by watching careful hands. You continue working. Time passes almost unnoticed. There is no clock nearby. None is needed. The sun itself becomes the monastery's great timekeeper. Its steady climb across the sky quietly marks the passing hours. Occasionally, one of the brothers hums a simple Gregorian melody beneath his breath. The tune drifts gently across the garden before disappearing into the breeze. No one joins him. No one asks him to stop. The quiet song simply becomes another peaceful thread woven into the morning. Beyond the vegetable plots lies the orchard. Rows of apple, pear, and plum trees stretch across the gentle hillside. Some branches already bend beneath the weight of ripening fruit. Others remain covered with fresh green leaves that shimmer softly whenever the wind passes through them. A few monks move carefully between the trees, inspecting branches for damage after last night's breeze. One brother gathers fallen fruit into a wicker basket. Bruised apples will not be wasted. They may become cider, preserves, or food for the monastery's pigs. Nothing useful is thrown away. Resourcefulness is simply another expression of gratitude. Farther beyond the orchard, several brothers tend a small vineyard. Depending on the region and climate, many monasteries cultivate grapes for making wine used during religious services. The vines require constant attention. Leaves must be trimmed. Shoots guided. branches carefully tied to wooden supports. Like so much of monastic life, success depends not upon speed but upon steady care given day after day. A gentle breeze passes across the fields. The wheat beyond the monastery walls ripples like golden waves upon the sea. For a few moments, everyone pauses. Not because they are tired. Simply because the beauty of the morning quietly invites appreciation. Sunlight warms your face. The scent of freshly turned earth rises from the garden. A butterfly drifts lazily among the lavender blossoms. Somewhere high above, a skylark sings almost continuously as it circles the workshops within the monastery. By the time the monastery bell rings again, the morning sun has climbed higher into the clear sky. Its golden light now reaches every corner of the cloister, warming the ancient stone walls that had felt cold only a few hours before. The dew has almost disappeared from the gardens, and a gentle breeze carries the mingled scents of lavender, fresh earth, and newly baked bread across the courtyard. You gently brush the last traces of soil from your hands. The vegetable beds are neat once again. The herbs have been watered. The weeds removed. For now, the gardens can quietly continue their patient work of growing. The elderly monk beside you rests his wooden hoe against a stone wall and offers a small, contented smile. There are no grand celebrations for finishing an ordinary task. No one congratulates another for pulling weeds or watering onions. The satisfaction comes from knowing the work has been done well. That is enough. Together, you and several brothers begin walking back toward the heart of the monastery. As you pass beneath the stone arches of the cloister, the atmosphere changes once more. The cheerful sounds of birds fade behind you. In their place come softer noises. The rhythmic scrape of a saw against timber. The steady tap of a wooden mallet. The gentle swish of a broom sweeping smooth flagstones. The crackling warmth of an oven somewhere nearby. The monastery is not simply a place of prayer. It is a village in miniature. Almost everything needed for daily life is produced within these walls. Long before factories or modern supply chains existed, monasteries became remarkable examples of self-sufficient communities. The brothers grew their own food, baked their own bread, brewed their own ale, stitched their own clothing, copied their own books, repaired their own buildings, and cared for their own animals. Every skill had its place. Every craftsman served the whole community. You follow one of the senior monks into the bakery. The moment the heavy wooden door opens, a wave of comforting warmth washes over you. The room smells wonderful. Freshly milled grain. Warm yeast. Smoky oak firewood. And the unmistakable aroma of bread baking inside a large stone oven. If heaven had a fragrance, you suspect it might smell something like this. Several brothers are already hard at work. One kneads a large mound of dough with slow, powerful movements, folding and pressing it again and again until it becomes smooth and elastic. Another carefully shapes round loaves before placing them onto wooden boards dusted with flour. A third brother uses an impossibly long wooden paddle to slide finished loaves deep into the glowing oven. No one rushes. Bread refuses to be hurried. Too little time, and it remains heavy. Too much heat, and it burns. Like so many things within the monastery, good bread rewards patience. The baker notices your curious expression and chuckles softly. The dough, he says quietly, teaches humility. You smile, uncertain exactly what he means. Perhaps he notices your confusion. If you force it, he continues, it resists. If you neglect it, it fails. But if you care for it steadily, it becomes something that can feed many. His words sound less like baking advice and more like a lesson about life itself. The monks often discover wisdom in ordinary things. A loaf of bread. A growing tree. A flowing stream. Simple tasks become quiet teachers. Leaving the bakery, you cross a small courtyard where sunlight dances upon a stone well. Several novices lower wooden buckets into the cool water below. The rope creaks gently. Moments later, clear water rises from the darkness, sparkling in the morning light. Without wells like this, daily life inside the monastery would be impossible. Water is needed for cooking, cleaning, gardening, brewing. Even copying manuscripts requires carefully prepared inks made with clean water. Every bucket drawn from the well reminds the community how deeply connected every task truly is. Nearby, another workshop hums with quiet activity. This one belongs to the cooper. Inside, the smell of freshly cut oak fills the air. Wooden barrels of every size stand neatly against the walls. Some will store grain. Others will hold salted fish. Still others are destined for the monastery's ale or wine. The cooper works with remarkable precision. He shapes curved wooden staves one by one before fitting them together so perfectly that the finished barrel needs no glue at all. Only careful craftsmanship. Only patience. Watching him work feels strangely relaxing. Each movement is deliberate, measured, confident. You begin to notice that nearly every brother performs his task in the same way. No wasted effort. No unnecessary haste. Simply calm attention. Perhaps this is what makes monastic life feel so peaceful. The work itself rarely changes. Instead, the monks change the way they approach their work. A little farther along, the sound of soft buzzing catches your attention. Behind a low stone wall stand several woven beehives. A brother dressed in a simple hood carefully inspects them. Beekeeping has long been an important part of monastic life. The bees provide sweet honey, one of the few natural luxuries available throughout much of medieval Europe. More importantly, they produce beeswax. Unlike smoky animal fat candles, beeswax burns with a cleaner, steadier flame. The monastery church depends upon these candles during long hours of prayer before sunrise and after sunset. The beekeeper gently lifts one section of the hive. Hundreds of bees continue their work almost undisturbed. He smiles. They remind us, he says softly, that every small effort becomes something wonderful when many work together. Again, an ordinary task quietly becomes a lesson. Beyond the hives lies a modest workshop where several monks repair farming tools. A wooden rake has lost one of its teeth. A wheelbarrow needs a new handle. A spade requires sharpening. Nothing is thrown away simply because it is broken. Instead, nearly everything is repaired. Resources are precious. Replacing an object often requires weeks of labor. Carefulness becomes second nature. You pick up a smooth wooden handle and help sand away rough edges before fitting it securely onto a repaired hoe. The repetitive movement feels almost meditative. Sand. Turn. Brush away the dust. Repeat. Time seems to slow once again. You begin to understand why many monks describe manual work as another form of prayer. It encourages complete attention to the present moment. There is little room for worry about tomorrow while carefully shaping a piece of wood. There is little space for regret about yesterday while repairing a broken tool. Only this task exists. Only this moment. Outside, a pair of children pass the monastery gate with their father, carrying baskets of eggs to trade. The porter greets them kindly before accepting the gift in exchange for several fresh loaves baked earlier that morning. The monastery is not completely separated from the surrounding world. Villagers often visit seeking bread during poor harvests, herbal remedies for illness, advice, or simply a place to rest during long journeys. Many leave carrying more than they brought. Hospitality is considered another quiet duty of monastic life. As the morning stretches toward midday, the workshops continue their steady rhythm. The baker removes another fragrant batch of bread from the oven. The cooper tightens the final iron hoop around a barrel. The beekeeper carefully seals a hive. The carpenter smooths the edge of a newly finished stool. No loud commands fill the air. No frantic pace disturbs the peace. Every brother understands that today's work does not need to be finished all at once. It simply needs to be done faithfully. The monastery itself seems to breathe through these countless small acts of care. A loaf baked. A candle poured. A roof repaired. A garden watered. None of these tasks will be remembered by history. No king will record them in his chronicles. No minstrel will sing songs about them. Yet together they sustain a community that has quietly endured for generations. The morning sun now stands high above the monastery roof. Its light pours into every courtyard, every workshop, and every narrow passage. Soon another bell will echo across the stone walls, gently calling every brother away from his labor. Tools will be laid aside. Ovens left to cool. Gardens entrusted to the sunshine. For even the busiest hands must pause when it is time to nourish not only the body, but also the mind and spirit once more. Your next destination lies in one of the quietest rooms in the entire monastery, a place where the scratching of quills replaces the sound of hammers, where patience is measured not in hours but in months, and where generations of monks preserve the wisdom of the world, one careful letter at a time. The doors of the scriptorium are waiting to open. The scriptorium, where every letter was a prayer. The monastery bell rings softly across the courtyard. Its deep, familiar voice drifts through the workshops, over the gardens, and into every quiet corner of the abbey. One by one, the brothers gently set aside their tools. The baker brushes flour from his hands before covering the remaining dough with a linen cloth. The carpenter carefully places his chisel back onto the workbench, ensuring its sharp edge is protected for tomorrow's work. The beekeeper secures the final hive before giving it one last contented glance. No task is abandoned carelessly. Everything is left ready for its next use. Within the monastery, caring for one's tools is considered almost as important as using them well. A neglected tool makes tomorrow's work harder, while a well-kept one may faithfully serve several generations of monks. You pause for a moment beneath the warm sunshine filling the cloister. The air feels pleasantly different now. Morning has matured into late morning. The cool freshness that greeted you before dawn has softened into gentle warmth. The scent of herbs still lingers on the breeze, though now it mingles with freshly baked bread, warm beeswax, and the faint aroma of parchment carried from somewhere inside the monastery. A swallow swoops gracefully beneath the stone archways before disappearing into the bright blue sky. Somewhere in the orchard, bees continue their patient work among the blossoms. The monastery hums with quiet life. Following several brothers, you leave the open courtyard and walk toward one of the oldest buildings within the monastery walls. Unlike the bakery, where warmth and cheerful activity greet every visitor, this place possesses a different kind of peace. The heavy oak door opens with a gentle creak. Immediately, the sounds of the outside world seem to fade away. You have entered the scriptorium. The room is surprisingly bright. Tall, narrow windows have been carefully placed to capture as much daylight as possible. Glass remains expensive during the Middle Ages, so many windows are small, yet every precious beam of sunlight is welcomed. Light is essential here. Every letter depends upon it. Rows of sturdy wooden desks stand neatly beside the windows. Each desk has been angled slightly, making it easier for the monks to work for long hours without straining their necks too greatly. At every place rests a feather quill, a small knife, an ink pot, sheets of carefully prepared parchment, and a few smooth stones used to keep delicate pages flat. The atmosphere is unlike anywhere else in the monastery. No hammer strikes wood. No oven crackles nearby. No conversation fills the air. Instead, you hear something much quieter. Scratch. 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 Dozens of quills glide steadily across parchment, creating a gentle rhythm so peaceful that it almost resembles the sound of light rain falling upon autumn leaves. It is one of the softest sounds you have ever heard. Yet it carries enormous importance. A kindly monk notices your curiosity and smiles warmly. Without speaking at first, he gestures toward an unfinished manuscript lying upon his desk. You lean closer. The page is breathtaking. Each line of writing is perfectly straight. Every letter appears almost identical to the one before it. The spacing is so precise that it seems impossible a human hand could have produced it. The monk notices your amazement. It takes many years, he whispers softly. His voice barely rises above the scratching of the quills. You nod slowly. That answer somehow explains everything. In today's world, words appear almost instantly. A single tap upon a keyboard can produce thousands of pages within minutes. Here, however, every sentence demands patience. Every paragraph is created one careful letter at a time. A single mistake may require hours of correction. Some errors cannot be corrected at all. You begin watching one of the scribes more closely. His movements are astonishingly steady. First, he gently dips the tip of his feather into dark ink. Not too deeply. Only enough to fill the tiny slit running through the quill. Then he pauses. Only after ensuring the correct amount of ink remains does he lower the feather onto the parchment. The first letter appears. Slowly. Gracefully. Without the slightest hesitation. Another follows. Then another. The words seem almost to grow across the page rather than being written. There is no hurry. There never can be. The monk explains quietly that rushing ruins manuscripts. Patience protects them. Many books copied here require several months to complete. Some of the largest Bibles occupy an entire team of scribes for several years. Every page must match the last. Every line must remain perfectly aligned. Every word deserves equal care. The work demands remarkable concentration. Yet strangely, the room feels peaceful rather than tense. No one appears anxious. No one glances constantly toward the door, wondering when the task will finally end. Each monk simply writes the line before him. Nothing more. Nothing less. Perhaps this is another quiet lesson hidden within monastery life. Large achievements are rarely completed in a single day. Instead, they grow from countless small acts performed faithfully over time. One letter becomes a word. Words become sentences. Sentences become books. Books preserve knowledge for centuries. You notice another brother preparing fresh ink. The process itself resembles a small science. Tiny amounts of oak gall, collected from trees where wasps have laid their eggs, are carefully mixed with iron salts and water. The liquid slowly darkens into a rich black ink capable of lasting for hundreds of years. Nearby, another monk gently grinds brilliant blue stones into fine powder. Others prepare pigments from red minerals, crushed plants, charcoal, or precious imported lapis lazuli. Gold leaf rests inside a delicate wooden box, shimmering softly whenever sunlight reaches it. These colors will soon decorate important pages with magnificent illuminated letters. The manuscripts are not merely books. They are works of devotion. Each page reflects both artistic beauty and spiritual dedication. A younger novice sits quietly near one window, carefully practicing individual letters upon a scrap piece of parchment. His tongue peeks slightly from the corner of his mouth as he concentrates. His first attempts are uneven. Some letters lean too far. Others crowd together. One line wanders gently uphill before curving back down again. The elderly monk supervising him simply smiles. He remembers making exactly the same mistakes many decades earlier. Learning here is never hurried. Progress arrives one careful page at a time. Across the room, another scribe pauses unexpectedly. He flexes his fingers before gazing through the window toward the peaceful monastery gardens. For several moments, he simply watches the breeze ripple through the lavender. Then he quietly returns to his work. Even the most disciplined hands require occasional rest. The monastery understands this well. Balance matters. Patience matters. Steadiness matters. Outside, the world beyond the monastery walls continues its busy rhythm. Merchants bargain in noisy marketplaces. Knights ride dusty roads. Kings discuss wars and politics inside distant castles. Most of those events will eventually fade into history. Yet within this quiet room, something extraordinary is happening. Books that might otherwise disappear forever are being preserved. Ancient wisdom is passing safely from one generation into the next. Without these patient scribes, countless works of history, philosophy, medicine, theology, and literature would simply vanish. Few of the monks think about fame. Most never imagine that people living hundreds of years in the future may one day read words copied by their own hands. They write because today's task deserves their full attention. The future quietly takes care of itself. The gentle scratching of quills continues around you. It becomes almost hypnotic. Like waves reaching a peaceful shore. Like rain tapping softly upon a wooden roof. Like the steady heartbeat of the monastery itself. Sunlight slowly shifts across the stone floor as the hours pass almost unnoticed. One page becomes two. Two become three. The manuscript slowly grows beneath careful hands. No one celebrates each completed page. There is only quiet satisfaction in continuing faithfully. Soon, however, your attention will be drawn toward another remarkable part of the scriptorium. For once the careful words have been written, another group of monks begins transforming these humble pages into dazzling works of art. Brilliant blues. Deep crimson reds. Shimmering gold. Tiny flowers. Graceful vines. Delicate birds. And playful little creatures hiding among the margins. Illuminating the pages, where books became works of art. The afternoon sunlight shifts gently across the stone floor of the scriptorium. The golden beam that had rested upon the first row of desks now slowly reaches farther into the room, catching tiny particles of dust that drift lazily through the still air. Around you, the quiet scratching of quills continues without interruption. Scratch. Pause. Scratch. The steady rhythm has become almost comforting, like the gentle sound of rain falling upon a monastery roof. Several scribes continue copying page after page with remarkable patience, but your attention is quietly drawn toward another corner of the room. Here, the atmosphere feels slightly different. Instead of rows of carefully written text, you see pages glowing with brilliant colors. Rich crimson. Deep sapphire blue. Soft emerald green. Brilliant gold that sparkles whenever sunlight touches it. This is where the illuminators work. If the scribes preserve knowledge through words, the illuminators honor those words through beauty. You approach one elderly monk sitting beside a broad wooden desk. Unlike the others, his page is nearly empty. Only a large capital letter has been lightly sketched near the top. It is far larger than any ordinary letter, leaving generous space for decoration. Beside him rests a collection of tiny shells, each holding a different colored pigment. Another contains delicate flakes of gold leaf so thin they seem ready to float away with the slightest breath. The monk notices your curiosity and smiles warmly. He carefully lifts a tiny brush. Its tip is so fine that it contains only a few hairs. With remarkable steadiness, he dips it into a brilliant blue pigment before gently touching it against the parchment. Slowly, almost impossibly slowly, the color begins to spread inside the large letter. There is no hesitation, no wasted movement. Every stroke has been carefully planned before the brush even touches the page. Watching him feels strangely hypnotic. Minutes pass. Only a tiny section has been completed. Yet no one appears concerned by the slow progress. Within the monastery, speed is rarely admired. Carefulness is. The monk quietly explains that some pigments come from nearby plants and minerals gathered around the monastery. Soft greens may come from crushed leaves, warm yellows from certain flowers, dark blacks from charcoal. Others, however, arrive after traveling astonishing distances. One small stone of lapis lazuli, brought from lands far beyond Europe, produces the magnificent deep blue reserved for the most important manuscripts. It is so precious that every tiny grain is treated with enormous respect. Nothing is wasted. Nearby, another illuminator prepares a sheet of gold leaf. Even breathing too heavily could send the delicate metal drifting through the room. Holding his breath for a moment, he gently places the shining leaf onto a section of parchment that has been coated with a special adhesive. Then, using a smooth polished stone, he carefully presses and burnishes the gold until it gleams like captured sunlight. As you watch, the page seems almost to come alive. Whenever the light changes, the gold catches it from a different angle, creating a gentle shimmer that dances across the manuscript. It is breathtaking. You begin to understand why illuminated books were treasured for centuries. They were not simply meant to be read. They were meant to inspire wonder. The monastery believes that beauty itself can become an act of worship. Across the room, another monk bends over an unfinished page filled with delicate vines curling around the margins. Tiny flowers bloom between the leaves. Small birds perch upon slender branches. A butterfly rests quietly beside a bright red blossom. Every detail is painted with astonishing care. You lean closer. Only then do you notice something unexpected. Near the bottom of the page, hiding among the vines, sits a tiny rabbit. It appears to be chasing a fox. You smile. Normally, one would expect the opposite. The monk notices your amusement. His eyes sparkle gently. Although monasteries are places of discipline, they are not entirely without humor. Throughout medieval manuscripts, artists sometimes hid playful little illustrations within the margins. A snail carrying a knight's shield. A monkey playing a flute. Cats chasing mice. Mice chasing cats. A rabbit hunting a man. Modern historians still debate exactly why these curious drawings appear. Perhaps they reminded tired scribes to smile after many long hours of work. Perhaps they simply reflected the artist's imagination. Whatever the reason, they quietly reveal something comforting. Even people living 800 years ago enjoyed small moments of light-heartedness. You continue walking between the desks. Each manuscript tells a different story. One contains passages from the Bible. Another preserves the writings of ancient Roman scholars. Nearby lies a medical text copied from even older Greek sources. There are books of music, books of history, books describing the movements of the stars, books explaining farming techniques and herbal remedies. the monastery is preserving far more than religious knowledge. It is quietly safeguarding the memory of entire civilizations. Without these patient scribes and illuminators, many ancient works would simply disappear. Fire, war, moisture. Time itself threatens every manuscript. Yet here, generation after generation of monks patiently fights against forgetting. One careful page at a time. A young novice enters carrying a stack of freshly prepared parchment. He moves cautiously, almost afraid to disturb the silence. The older monks greet him with gentle smiles. One invites him to sit nearby. Today, he will practice painting simple red initials. Nothing elaborate. No gold. No brilliant blue. Only one careful letter after another. His first attempt wavers slightly. The line grows thicker than intended. The novice sighs quietly. Before disappointment can settle upon his face, the elderly illuminator beside him chuckles softly. He reaches beneath his desk and carefully unfolds an old scrap of parchment. It contains his own practice letters from many years ago. They are wonderfully imperfect. Some lean sideways. Others are uneven. One large capital seems almost ready to tumble off the page entirely. The novice laughs. The older monk laughs too. Without saying very much, he has shared an important lesson. Mastery begins with mistakes. Every beautiful manuscript once started with uncertain hands. Encouraged, the novice picks up his brush once more. This time his lines grow steadier. Not perfect. Simply better. Sometimes that is enough. Outside the narrow windows, clouds drift slowly across the afternoon sky. The sunlight softens for a few moments before returning once again. Its gentle glow fills the room with quiet warmth. Hours seem to pass without anyone noticing. There is no impatience. No anxious glance toward the door. The monks remain completely absorbed in the task before them. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson the scriptorium offers. Not simply how to write. Not merely how to paint. But how to give complete attention to one small task at a time. One letter. One line. One page. One day. When enough faithful days are joined together, they quietly become a lifetime of meaningful work. Finally, one of the scribes carefully closes the finished manuscript. The thick wooden covers meet with a satisfying, gentle sound. A leather strap is wrapped securely around the book to protect its precious pages. Another volume has been completed. No applause follows. No grand celebration fills the room. The monks simply bow their heads for a brief moment of gratitude before returning to their desks. There is always another book waiting. Another page. Another letter. Another quiet opportunity to serve. As you leave the scriptorium, you glance back one final time. The scratching of quills continues. The tiny brushes dance across brilliant colors. Golden letters shimmer softly in the afternoon light. Behind these peaceful walls, history is being preserved not through battles or kings, but through patience, humility, and countless faithful hands. Outside, the monastery bell begins to ring once again. Its familiar voice echoes gently through the cloister, calling the brothers away from their desks. The manuscripts can wait. The colors can dry. The gold leaf can rest. For another important duty now awaits. Beyond the cloister, the monastery gate has quietly opened to welcome weary travelers, hungry pilgrims, and villagers seeking comfort, reminding every monk that preserving wisdom is important but showing kindness to another human being is just as sacred. The heart of the monastery. Caring for the sick and welcoming the stranger. The scratching of quills slowly fades behind you as the heavy door of the scriptorium closes with a gentle creak. For a few moments, you remain standing beneath the covered cloister, allowing your eyes to adjust once more to the bright afternoon sunlight. The monastery feels different now. Morning has quietly slipped into midday. The shadows beneath the stone arches have grown shorter, while warm golden light fills every courtyard. The air carries the pleasant fragrance of sun-warmed herbs, flowering roses climbing ancient walls, and fresh bread cooling upon wooden racks somewhere in the kitchens. A gentle breeze stirs the leaves of the orchard. White butterflies drift lazily between patches of lavender. From beyond the monastery walls comes the faint sound of sheep grazing peacefully in distant meadows. The entire world seems to move at exactly the right pace. Nothing appears hurried. Nothing feels neglected. Everything simply unfolds as it should. The bell rings once. Not the long, echoing call that summons everyone to prayer, but a softer signal announcing the next part of the day's rhythm. Several brothers quietly leave their various tasks and begin walking toward a modest stone building near the monastery gate. Unlike the church or the scriptorium, this building receives a steady stream of visitors from beyond the monastery walls. Some arrive on foot. Others on tired horses. A few lean heavily upon walking sticks after many days of travel. You follow the monks with quiet curiosity. As you approach, you notice something remarkable. The monastery gate stands open. Not wide enough to welcome an army, but open enough to welcome anyone in need. A grey-haired porter greets each visitor with the same calm kindness. He asks no questions about wealth. He does not inquire whether someone is noble or poor. He simply offers a gentle smile and invites them inside. Hospitality is one of the oldest traditions of monastic life. Following the rule of Saint Benedict, many monasteries believed that every guest should be welcomed with dignity and compassion, as though they were receiving Christ himself. For the brothers, kindness is not reserved for special occasions. It is part of the daily routine. Inside the guest house, the atmosphere is peaceful. The room is simple but comfortable. Several wooden benches line the walls. A small fireplace burns gently despite the pleasant weather, more for preparing warm water than for heating the room. Clay cups filled with cool well water rest upon a sturdy oak table. A traveling merchant removes his dusty boots with a grateful sigh. His face bears the tired expression of someone who has spent many days upon rough medieval roads. Nearby, an elderly woman quietly cradles her sore hand after slipping while gathering firewood. A young shepherd sits patiently beside his little brother, whose scraped knee has clearly caused him far more worry than pain. The monks move among them without hurry. One brother offers fresh bread. Another pours warm vegetable broth into wooden bowls. A third quietly gathers clean linen cloths. No one raises their voice. There is no sense of panic. Even those who arrive anxious soon seem to breathe a little more slowly. You notice an older monk entering from the monastery's herb garden carrying a woven basket. Inside are bundles of rosemary, sage, yarrow, mint, chamomile, comfrey, and lavender. The scents mingle together so pleasantly that the room almost resembles a peaceful summer garden. The monk sets the basket upon a sturdy wooden table before carefully sorting each herb. Every plant has been grown with patience. Every leaf gathered at just the right moment. Every remedy prepared according to knowledge passed carefully from one generation of monks to the next. In the medieval world, monasteries often became places where ancient medical knowledge survived. While treatments were naturally limited by the understanding of the time, monks carefully studied herbal remedies, cleanliness, diet, and rest. They copied medical texts alongside religious manuscripts, preserving ideas that might otherwise have been lost. Many villagers travel considerable distances seeking their help. Not because miracles are expected, but because compassion is always offered. You watch as the elderly woman's injured hand is gently examined. The monk first washes the scrape with clean water drawn from the monastery well. Only then does he carefully apply a soothing herbal preparation before wrapping the wound with fresh linen. His movements are calm, unhurried, reassuring. The woman smiles gratefully. Even if the medicine itself offers only modest relief, the kindness certainly eases her worry. Across the room, another brother kneels beside the frightened young shepherd. The child's scraped knee hardly requires great medical skill. Still, the monk treats it with complete seriousness. He cleans the wound, applies a little herbal salve, then, with a warm smile, produces a small piece of honeycomb from his sleeve. The boy's worried expression vanishes instantly. His older brother laughs quietly. Even the stern-looking porter cannot quite hide a smile. Compassion sometimes arrives in surprisingly simple forms. You step outside into the sunshine once more. Several travelers have paused beneath a large oak tree growing near the monastery wall. One carefully repairs the strap of his leather satchel. Another quietly shares bread with his tired horse. A young woman rocks her sleeping baby while enjoying the peaceful shade. Long journeys across medieval Europe are rarely easy. Roads are rough. Bridges unreliable. Inns can be few and far between. For many travelers, a monastery becomes more than a place to rest. It becomes a haven. Some stay only long enough to eat. Others spend the night before continuing their journey at sunrise. The monks ask for little in return. Sometimes a visitor leaves a small donation. Sometimes only heartfelt thanks. Often that is enough. You continue walking along a narrow path leading toward the monastery's infirmary garden. Here, neat rows of medicinal plants stretch beneath the afternoon sun. Small wooden signs identify many of them. Feverfew, hyssop, fennel, valerian, calendula. Their colors brighten the peaceful courtyard with shades of yellow, purple, blue, and white. Honeybees move lazily from flower to flower, continuing their tireless work. A novice kneels carefully beside one flower bed, gently removing weeds. An older monk pauses to explain which herbs soothe fevers and which calm troubled stomachs. The lesson is given quietly, patiently. There is no examination waiting tomorrow. Knowledge is passed from experienced hands to younger ones exactly as it has been for centuries. Nearby stands a small stone fountain. Crystal clear water trickles gently into a shallow basin before flowing onward through a narrow channel that helps irrigate parts of the garden. You pause beside it. The sound of moving water is wonderfully calming. Many monasteries were deliberately built where fresh springs or reliable streams could provide clean water throughout the year. Such practical decisions quietly shape daily life. Without water, there could be no gardens, no kitchens, no manuscripts, no healing, no monastery. Everything is connected. As you rest beneath the shade of the herb garden, you begin to understand that this place serves a purpose far greater than caring only for its own community. The monastery is not an island separated from the world. It is a quiet refuge within it. A place where tired travelers find rest. Where frightened children discover reassurance. Where the hungry receive bread. Where the lonely are welcomed with dignity. Where simple acts of kindness become part of everyday life. Perhaps that is why so many people remember medieval monasteries with affection. Not because the monks lived extraordinary lives filled with adventure, but because they transformed ordinary moments into opportunities for compassion. The afternoon sun continues its slow journey westward. Longer shadows begin to stretch across the cloister garden. Soon another bell will gently call the brothers away from their work once again. This time, not toward labor or hospitality, but toward the peaceful heart of the monastery itself. The cool stone cloister will soon fill with quiet footsteps as every monk returns for midday prayer and silent reflection, allowing both body and spirit to rest before the gentle rhythm of the day carries on. Midday prayer and quiet reflection. The monastery bell rings once again. Its deep bronze voice drifts gently across the herb gardens, through the orchard, and over the quiet courtyard where a handful of weary travelers still rest beneath the shade of the ancient oak. The sound is neither urgent nor commanding. It does not interrupt the day. Instead, it gently gathers it together. The monk tending the herb garden carefully places his small knife upon the wooden bench. The brother who has been comforting the injured shepherd quietly folds his clean linen cloth. The porter at the monastery gate offers a warm smile to a departing traveler before slowly closing the heavy oak door. One by one, every task comes to a peaceful pause. Within the monastery, work is important. Hospitality is important. Learning is important. But several times each day, every responsibility gives way to something even greater. Prayer. You fall into step beside the other brothers as they begin walking toward the church. No one rushes. There is no anxious glance toward the sky or concern about unfinished work. The gardens will still be there after prayer. The bread will continue cooling upon its wooden shelves. The manuscripts will patiently wait inside the scriptorium. The monastery has learned a quiet truth over many generations. Not everything must be finished immediately. Some things become better when they are allowed to wait. The cloister feels especially peaceful at this hour. Sunlight pours through the graceful stone arches, painting long rectangles of light across the worn flagstones. The fountain at the center of the courtyard murmurs softly as clear spring water trickles into its circular basin. Its gentle music blends with the distant songs of blackbirds nesting among the apple trees. The air is warm now, carrying the rich fragrance of rosemary, lavender, thyme, and sun-worn stone. Tiny bees continue moving from flower to flower, completely absorbed in their quiet work. Even they seem to belong to the gentle rhythm of the monastery. As you walk, you notice an elderly monk slowing his pace. Rather than hurrying past him, the younger brothers naturally slow their own steps. No one sighs impatiently. No one encourages him to move faster. They simply adjust their pace together. It is such a small moment that it could easily be overlooked. Yet it quietly reveals something important. Life inside the monastery is not built around speed. It is built around community. The strongest walk beside the weakest. The youngest learn patience from the oldest. No one is left behind. You enter the church once more. Compared with the brilliant sunshine outside, the interior feels wonderfully cool. Thick stone walls have kept the building comfortable through countless summers. Hundreds of years have passed over these ancient stones, yet they remain calm and unchanging. The familiar scent of beeswax candles still lingers in the air. Soft rays of colored light stream through the stained glass windows, scattering gentle shades of ruby, sapphire, emerald, and gold across the floor. The colors slowly shift as clouds drift lazily across the afternoon sky. Each brother quietly returns to his usual place. No instructions are needed. The rhythm has become second nature. The service at midday is shorter than the long prayers before dawn, yet it carries the same peaceful atmosphere. A single voice begins the first psalm. Soon the others gently join. The chants rise slowly through the church, flowing upward into the vaulted ceiling before drifting back again like waves upon a quiet shore. You notice something remarkable. Although every monk sings the same words, no voice tries to rise above the others. No one seeks attention. Each voice simply supports the whole. Together they create something far more beautiful than any one singer could achieve alone. Perhaps that is another lesson hidden within monastic life. Some of the most meaningful things are created together rather than alone. When the final notes fade into silence, no one moves immediately. The church becomes completely still. Outside, a breeze brushes gently against the leaves of the orchard. Inside, only the faint crackle of a nearby candle can be heard. This period of silence is not empty. It is full of quiet attention. You lower your eyes and allow your thoughts to settle. At first, your mind wanders naturally. You remember the herb garden, the smell of freshly baked bread, the brilliant gold shining upon the illuminated manuscript, the smiling face of the little shepherd boy who received a piece of honeycomb. Thoughts appear one after another, like leaves floating upon the surface of a slow-moving stream. Rather than chasing them away, you simply watch them drift by. Gradually, they become fewer. Your breathing slows. The silence no longer feels unusual. Instead, it feels welcoming. In the modern world, silence is often filled as quickly as possible. Music plays while people travel. Voices speak from every corner. Messages arrive one after another. Moments of true stillness can become surprisingly rare. For the medieval monk, however, silence is not something missing. It is something carefully protected. It allows gratitude to grow. It allows patience to deepen. It gives the heart room to rest. A tiny shaft of sunlight suddenly breaks through the clouds outside. It falls directly upon the carved wooden lectern near the altar. The polished surface glows warmly for a few moments before the light slowly moves on again. The monks do not react. No one points. No one whispers. Yet somehow the simple changing light feels like part of the prayer itself. Time continues to pass almost unnoticed. Eventually, the abbot quietly closes the prayer book. He bows his head. The brothers follow. The service has ended. Still, no one hurries toward the door. Several monks remain seated for a few extra moments of private reflection. Others quietly light fresh candles before leaving. One elderly brother gently straightens a folded cloth upon the altar with the same care he might give to copying a manuscript. Even the smallest task deserves attention. Outside, the monastery has remained wonderfully peaceful. The fountain continues its gentle song. Swallows sweep gracefully across the blue sky. The travelers resting beneath the oak tree have resumed their journeys, leaving only faint wool tracks upon the dusty road beyond the gate. The afternoon sun now hangs comfortably above the western side of the monastery. Its light has grown softer, casting long shadows beneath the cloister arches. You begin walking slowly through the covered passageways. The polished stone beneath your sandals has carried generations of monks to prayer and back again. Some who walked here centuries ago have long been forgotten by history. No statues remember them. No books record their names. Yet every careful step they took helped shape the peaceful community that still exists today. There is something quietly comforting about that thought. Not every meaningful life becomes famous. Some leave their greatest mark through small acts repeated faithfully over many years. A loaf of bread shared with a stranger. A herb gathered for someone who is ill. A manuscript copied with patient hands. A prayer whispered in the stillness of the afternoon. As you complete another slow circle around the cloister, the peaceful rhythm of the monastery gently resumes. The baker returns to his ovens. The gardener to his vegetables. The scribe to his waiting manuscript. The beekeeper to his hives. The porter once again watches the monastery gate. The pause has not interrupted the day. It has quietly renewed it. The monastery seems to breathe once more, carrying every brother back to his simple duties with calmer hearts and steadier hands. Soon, However, your own afternoon will take a different path. Rather than returning immediately to the gardens or workshops, you will accompany one of the senior monks to a quiet classroom tucked beside the cloister, where young novices patiently learn to read, write, sing, and live according to the gentle rhythm of monastic life. For every wise old monk was once a curious beginner, and every peaceful monastery depends upon those willing to teach the next generation. The gentle afternoon. Teaching the novices. As the final echoes of the midday prayers fade into silence, the monastery slowly returns to its gentle rhythm. The brothers leave the cool shelter of the church one by one, stepping once again into the warm afternoon sunlight. The day has reached its quiet middle. The air is softer now, carrying the sweet fragrance of lavender warmed by the sun, fresh hay from nearby fields, and the faint scent of beeswax drifting from the workshops. High above the monastery, white clouds drift lazily across a brilliant blue sky. The swallows that darted energetically through the morning now glide effortlessly on gentle currents of warm air. Beyond the stone walls, the countryside seems almost drowsy beneath the afternoon sun. Farmers pause beneath old oak trees to enjoy a simple meal. Sheep gather in patches of shade. Even the wind seems content to move more slowly. Inside the monastery, however, the day still has many peaceful hours to offer. Not every monk returns immediately to the gardens or the workshops. Some walk toward one of the quieter buildings nestled beside the eastern cloister. Its walls are modest. Its doorway is plain. Yet behind it lies one of the monastery's most important rooms. It is the school. You follow an elderly monk whose silver beard reaches almost to the rope tied around his waist. His pace is slow but steady. Years of faithful living have bent his back slightly, yet there is a quiet strength in every step he takes. His name is Brother Matthew. For more than 40 years, he has copied manuscripts, tended gardens, sung the daily offices, and now spends much of his time teaching the youngest members of the community. He often says that growing vegetables is easy. Growing wise people requires much more patience. As you enter the small classroom, the atmosphere immediately feels peaceful. Sunlight streams gently through narrow windows, filling the room with a warm golden glow. Rows of simple wooden benches face a large oak table where several manuscripts, wax tablets, and feather quills have been carefully arranged. The room smells pleasantly of old parchment, polished wood, beeswax candles, and freshly sharpened quills. It is wonderfully quiet. Only the cheerful chirping of sparrows outside occasionally drifts through the open window. Soon the novices begin to arrive. Most are boys and young men, though their ages vary considerably. Some appear no older than 12 or 13. Others have already reached adulthood before choosing to enter monastic life. Each wears the same plain wool habit as the older brothers, though many still move with the uncertain eagerness of youth. Their eyes wander curiously around the room. One struggles to suppress a yawn after rising before dawn. Another carefully straightens the folds of his habit. A third quietly smiles as he notices a robin perched upon the windowsill outside. Brother Matthew greets each of them with the same gentle warmth. He knows every name. He remembers every personality. He understands who learns quickly and who requires extra encouragement. Teaching, he believes, begins long before the lesson itself. It begins with knowing the student. The novices take their places. No loud command is given. No ruler strikes the table demanding silence. The room simply settles naturally. Brother Matthew opens a large manuscript resting before him. Its pages have grown slightly yellow with age, while the leather binding bears the marks of many careful hands. This book, he says softly, is older than any person in this room. The boys lean forward with quiet curiosity. You hold in your hands not only parchment and ink, but the voices of those who came before us. He gently turns another page. One day, he continues, others will learn from the books you preserve. The words hang peacefully in the air. The novices nod thoughtfully. Perhaps they are only beginning to understand the importance of their future work. The lesson begins with reading. Brother Matthew traces each line with his finger while the younger monks quietly repeat the Latin words after him. Some pronounce them confidently. Others stumble over unfamiliar sounds. No one laughs. Mistakes are expected. Indeed, mistakes are welcomed as signs that learning is taking place. A young novice named Thomas hesitates over a difficult sentence. His cheek. The rhythm of the seasons. The lesson comes to a quiet end. Brother Matthew gently closes the old manuscript, resting his weathered hand upon its worn leather cover for a brief moment before carefully placing it back upon the oak table. The novices rise together. Wooden benches scrape softly against the stone floor, their sound echoing gently through the small classroom before fading into silence once again. One by one, the young brothers bow respectfully to their teacher. He returns each bow with a warm smile. There is no ceremony. No grand farewell. Only the quiet understanding that tomorrow, and many tomorrows after that, they will gather here again to continue learning. Outside, the afternoon has settled comfortably over the monastery. The bright excitement of morning has given way to a slower, gentler warmth. The shadows beneath the cloister arches have grown longer, stretching gracefully across the ancient flagstones like long fingers reaching toward the gardens. A soft breeze wanders through the courtyard, carrying with it the sweet fragrance of blooming lavender, fresh-cut hay from nearby meadows, and the unmistakable scent of warm earth that has spent the day beneath the summer sun. Brother Matthew motions for you to walk beside him. Rather than returning immediately to the workshops or the gardens, he leads you toward the far edge of the monastery grounds. The path curves gently through the orchard. Apple trees stand proudly on either side, their branches heavy with ripening fruit. Some apples are still small and bright green. Others have begun turning shades of deep red and golden yellow. A few have already fallen quietly onto the grass below, where bees and butterflies share nature's unexpected feast. Brother Matthew bends slowly and picks up one of the fallen apples. He brushes away a little dust before holding it in the palm of his hand. Everything, he says softly, has its season. His words are simple. Yet they seem perfectly suited to this peaceful afternoon. He places the apple into a nearby basket instead of throwing it away. It may become cider, he says with a gentle smile. Or perhaps tomorrow's pie. Nothing useful is wasted here. The monastery has learned to appreciate every gift, no matter how small. As you continue walking, the orchard slowly gives way to wide open fields surrounding the monastery. Golden barley sways gently beneath the breeze, moving together like quiet waves upon a peaceful sea. Farther away, several monks continue harvesting grain with careful, steady movements. They pause occasionally to wipe their brows before returning once again to their work. No one appears hurried. Harvests cannot be rushed. Nature keeps its own timetable. The monastery has learned to follow it rather than fight against it. Brother Matthew stops beside a low stone wall overlooking the fields. For several peaceful moments, neither of you speaks. There is simply too much beauty to interrupt with unnecessary words. A skylark circles high above, filling the afternoon air with cheerful song. Grasshoppers chirp among the tall grasses. Somewhere in the distance, sheep bells tinkle softly as a shepherd guides his flock across the hillside. Even the wind seems to move with quiet purpose. Finally, the old monk breaks the silence. When I first entered this monastery, he says, I thought every day would be exactly the same. He smiles to himself. I was wrong. You glance toward him curiously. The prayers remain the same, he explains. The bells ring at the same hours. We eat similar meals. We walk these same paths. He gestures toward the surrounding countryside. But the seasons change everything. His weathered hand sweeps gently across the landscape before you. In spring, he says, these fields are full of tiny green shoots. The orchards bloom with white blossoms. The bees return after the long winter. The birds build their nests beneath the monastery roof. You almost imagine the scene as he describes it. The air filled with birdsong. Fresh rain nourishing young plants. Novices carefully planting vegetables in newly prepared gardens. Brother Matthew continues. Summer brings longer days. The gardens become heavy with vegetables. The herbs fill the air with fragrance. The bees gather honey. The brothers spend many peaceful hours beneath the warm sun. A gentle breeze passes through the barley fields just then, as though agreeing with every word. The golden heads of grain bow together before rising once more. The old monk watches them quietly. Then his smile grows thoughtful. Autumn, he says, is perhaps my favorite. You raise an eyebrow. Not because it is easier. He chuckles softly. It certainly is not. The harvest must be gathered. Apples picked. Grapes pressed. Firewood stacked. Food prepared for the long winter. It is busy work. But it reminds us that patient effort is finally rewarded. He bends once again, picking up a handful of ripe barley. For months, he says, letting the grain slip gently through his fingers, these fields appeared almost unchanged. But every quiet day mattered. Growth was happening, even when no one could see it. His words seem to describe far more than farming. Perhaps wisdom grows in much the same way. Slowly. Almost invisibly. One ordinary day at a time. The two of you resume walking. Soon the fields give way to a peaceful woodland path bordering the monastery. Tall oak trees provide cool shade from the afternoon sun. Their leaves rustle softly overhead while tiny shafts of golden light dance upon the forest floor. A squirrel darts across the path carrying an acorn nearly as large as its own head. Brother Matthew laughs quietly. He is preparing for winter. The squirrel disappears into the branches. So are we. Winter. The word alone changes the mood of the conversation, not to sadness, but to quiet respect. When the snow arrives, Brother Matthew says, the gardens sleep. The fields rest. The orchards stand bare. Many people imagine the monastery becomes silent. He shakes his head gently. It simply changes. The brothers spend more time copying books, repairing tools, making candles, teaching the novices, reading, praying. The work never truly ends. It only changes with the seasons. You suddenly realize that the monastery itself resembles the year. Some days are like spring, filled with beginnings. Others resemble summer, full of activity. Some become autumn, rewarding long patience. Others are quiet winters, inviting rest and reflection. None is better than another. Each has its purpose. As the path leads back toward the monastery, the afternoon light begins to soften. The brilliant blue sky slowly deepens into gentler shades of gold. Long shadows stretch across the cloister garden. The fountain sparkles as sunlight catches its flowing water. Several brothers carry baskets of vegetables toward the kitchens. Others gather herbs that will be dried and stored for the colder months ahead. The peaceful rhythm continues exactly as it has for generations. Nothing feels hurried. Nothing feels wasted. Every season has prepared the monastery for the next. Every day quietly prepares tomorrow. Brother Matthew pauses beside the ancient stone well. He looks across the courtyard where young novices laugh softly while helping an older monk carry firewood. The sound is brief, gentle. Soon they fall silent again, continuing their work. The old monk smiles. When I was their age, he says, I believed wisdom arrived all at once. He looks toward the orchard, now glowing beneath the warm afternoon light. I know better now. Wisdom grows the way trees grow. Slowly. Patiently. So slowly that you rarely notice it. But one day you look back and discover how much has changed. The monastery bell suddenly rings across the quiet courtyard. Its familiar voice rolls gently through the fields, the gardens, the orchard, and the woodland beyond. Even the birds seem to pause for a moment. The afternoon is drawing toward evening. The brothers begin laying aside their tools. Baskets of vegetables are carried toward the kitchens. The last herbs are gathered. Workshop doors are quietly closed. Soon the monastery will prepare for one of the most comforting moments of the entire day, the evening meal, shared together in gratitude before the peaceful light of sunset slowly settles over the ancient stone walls. And with unhurried steps, you follow the brothers home once more.
Evening descends. Supper and fellowship. The familiar sound of the monastery bell slowly fades into the peaceful evening air. For a few quiet moments, no one moves. The brothers simply pause wherever they are, allowing the final echoes to disappear across the fields. The gardeners rest their wicker baskets beside the vegetable beds. The carpenter gently places his tools back upon the workbench. In the scriptorium, the last manuscript of the day is carefully covered with a clean linen cloth, protecting its delicate pages until tomorrow. The day's labor has come to an end. Not because every task has been completed. There is always another fence to mend, another page to copy, another herb to harvest. Instead, the work pauses because the monastery understands something that many people beyond its walls often forget. A good day's work must be balanced with a good evening of rest. The afternoon sun hangs low above the western hills now, bathing the monastery in a warm golden light that softens every stone and every shadow. The air has begun to cool ever so slightly, carrying with it the comforting fragrance of baked bread, rosemary, wood smoke, and fresh vegetables simmering slowly in the monastery kitchen. Swallows make their final graceful circles above the bell tower before settling beneath the roof for the night. Somewhere near the orchard, a blackbird sings one last cheerful melody before evening quietly takes its place. You walk alongside the other monks through the familiar cloister. The long shadows stretching across the ancient stone floor remind you just how much the sun has traveled since you first awoke in complete darkness before dawn. It feels as though many days have passed. Yet it has been only one. Such is the rhythm of monastic life. Every hour is lived so fully that time seems wonderfully generous. As you approach the refectory once again, the comforting aroma of supper grows stronger. Unlike the lively kitchens of castles preparing extravagant feasts for nobles, the monastery kitchen remains remarkably peaceful. A large iron pot hangs above a glowing fire. Steam rises gently toward the wooden beams overhead. Several brothers quietly stir the evening meal using long wooden spoons polished smooth by years of faithful use. Another monk slices fresh loaves baked earlier that very afternoon. Each loaf still carries a pleasant warmth from the great stone oven. Nearby, baskets overflow with onions, carrots, beans, and cabbages gathered from the monastery gardens only a few hours ago. Nothing has traveled far. Almost everything upon tonight's table has been grown, harvested, baked, or prepared within these very walls. The meal is simple. Yet after a full day of prayer, study, gardening, teaching, and craftsmanship, it feels wonderfully satisfying. The brothers quietly enter the dining hall. Just as they did that morning, each monk takes his familiar place upon the long wooden benches. The arrangement has hardly changed in years. Perhaps decades. Perhaps longer. New novices quietly fill the places once occupied by older brothers who have long since completed their earthly journeys. The community changes slowly, almost like the growth of an ancient oak tree. One generation gently makes room for the next. You sit upon the same sturdy bench where you enjoyed breakfast. The wooden bowl waiting before you has been carefully washed until it is spotless. Beside it rests another generous slice of dark rye bread. A clay cup stands ready to receive the evening's drink. The room remains pleasantly quiet. Yet unlike the silence of early morning, this silence feels softer somehow. There is an unmistakable sense of peaceful satisfaction. The brothers have worked well. The gardens have been tended. The guests welcomed. The manuscripts advanced. The novices taught. Now everyone gathers once more, not as individual workers, but as one community. The abbot rises. Every head bows. A brief prayer of thanksgiving is offered not only for the food itself, but for the strength to perform the day's labor, for the changing seasons, for the kindness shared with strangers, and for another peaceful day lived together. The prayer ends. The meal quietly begins. Tonight's supper is a hearty vegetable stew. The rich broth carries the flavors of onions, leeks, carrots, barley, and fragrant herbs gathered fresh from the monastery gardens. Small pieces of beans add texture, while generous slices of freshly baked bread wait patiently to soak up every last drop. The stew is warm without being heavy. Simple without being plain. It tastes of the earth itself. You tear off a piece of bread and dip it slowly into the steaming bowl. The crust softens. The herbs release their fragrance. Every bite feels comforting. Nearby, a novice carefully pours weak ale into each clay cup. Like breakfast, the drink is mild and nourishing, brewed within the monastery itself using recipes refined through generations of careful practice. Outside the narrow windows, the evening sky continues its slow transformation. The brilliant blue of afternoon has softened into pale gold. Clouds drift lazily across the horizon, their edges glowing with warm amber light. The entire countryside seems to exhale after the labors of the day. A gentle breeze slips through the open window, carrying the distant scent of freshly cut hay. As the brothers eat, one monk once again stands upon the small reading platform. Just as during breakfast, he opens a carefully copied manuscript. Tonight, however, the reading feels especially fitting. It speaks of gratitude, of contentment, of finding joy in ordinary moments rather than extraordinary possessions. His calm voice fills the hall. No one interrupts. No one hurries through the meal. The words flow gently through the room like the quiet stream that runs beyond the monastery walls. You glance around the table. Many of the brothers have lived here for decades. Some have entered as children. Others arrived after serving as soldiers, merchants, craftsmen, or farmers. Now they share the same bread, the same prayers, the same peaceful rhythm. Their lives have become woven together through countless ordinary days just like this one. You notice Brother Matthew seated a little farther along the table. The elderly teacher smiles warmly as one of the younger novices quietly offers him the last piece of fresh bread. Brother Matthew accepts only half. He gently breaks the loaf in two before returning the larger portion to the novice. No words are exchanged. None are needed. Small acts of kindness have become as natural here as breathing. At the far end of the hall, a young novice accidentally drops his wooden spoon. It clatters loudly against the stone floor, briefly breaking the peaceful silence. The boy freezes, his face turning bright red. For a heartbeat, the room remains perfectly still. Then, from somewhere near the middle of the table, a soft chuckle escapes. Another follows. Even the abbot smiles kindly. The novice quickly retrieves his spoon, relieved that his mistake has brought gentle laughter rather than embarrassment. The moment passes as quietly as it arrived. Within minutes, the peaceful rhythm of the meal has returned. Perhaps that, too, is part of life inside the monastery. Perfection is never demanded. Only patience. Only kindness. Outside, the first hints of evening begin settling over the gardens. Long shadows stretch across the herb beds. The fountain in the cloister reflects the golden sky like polished glass. Birdsong grows quieter with each passing minute as the creatures of the monastery prepare for the coming night. One by one, the bowls gradually empty. Breadcrumbs are carefully gathered. Nothing is wasted. The brothers quietly help one another clear the long tables. Some carry heavy pots back toward the kitchen. Others wash wooden bowls in warm water drawn from the monastery well. Even these final tasks are performed with the same calm attention that has shaped the entire day. The meal may be over, but the day itself has not yet reached its peaceful conclusion. Beyond the windows, the sky is becoming a tapestry of gold, rose, and soft violet. Soon, the monastery bell will ring once more, calling every brother back to the church. There, beneath the glow of flickering candles and stained glass windows touched by the last light of the setting sun, the ancient voices of Vespers will rise into the quiet evening, bringing another beautiful day gently toward its close. Vespers, when the monastery sings to the setting sun. The last wooden bowl is carefully washed and returned to its familiar place upon the shelf. The tables of the refectory, so recently filled with the warmth of supper and the quiet companionship of the brothers, are wiped clean with damp linen cloths. A few crumbs of dark rye bread are gathered and placed aside, destined for the monastery's chickens rather than being thrown away. Nothing is wasted. Not food. Not time. Not kindness. The monks leave the dining hall as peacefully as they entered it. No one lingers unnecessarily. No one hurries toward the next duty. Instead, they walk together beneath the long stone arches of the cloister, where the evening has begun weaving its gentle magic across the monastery. The western sky glows with soft colors now. Golden sunlight spills across the ancient walls, turning grey limestone into warm shades of honey and amber. The fountain at the center of the courtyard reflects the changing sky like polished glass, its quiet ripples catching tiny flashes of light before letting them drift away. The air has cooled pleasantly. The warmth of the afternoon has given way to the gentle freshness that arrives just before sunset. A light breeze stirs the lavender growing beside the pathway, releasing its calming fragrance into the evening air. Nearby, rosemary and thyme add their own familiar scents, blending together until the whole cloister seems wrapped in a peaceful perfume. The birds know that the day is ending. A family of swallows darts gracefully beneath the monastery roof before disappearing into their nests beneath the wooden beams. Robins sing one final cheerful melody from the orchard. High above, a flock of starlings moves together across the glowing sky, their countless wings shifting as one before slowly vanishing beyond the distant hills. Brother Matthew pauses beside the fountain. He does not speak. He simply watches the evening unfold. You stand beside him, listening to the gentle sound of flowing water. For several quiet moments, neither of you feels any need for conversation. The silence itself is enough. Perhaps that is one of the monastery's greatest gifts. It teaches that not every beautiful moment requires words. The great bell begins to ring. Its deep voice rolls across the courtyard, over the gardens, and beyond the monastery walls into the surrounding countryside. Farmers working in nearby fields hear its familiar sound. Travelers walking dusty roads pause for a brief moment. Even those who do not live within the monastery know that the evening prayers are about to begin. The brothers quietly turn toward the church. Their sandals whisper softly across the smooth stone floor. Every step feels familiar. Some have walked this path every day for 20 years. Others for 40. A few elderly monks have followed this same route for more than half a century. The path itself seems to remember them. The worn flagstones have been polished smooth by generations of faithful footsteps. You pass beneath the great oak doorway once again. The cool air inside the church welcomes you immediately. Compared with the golden warmth outside, the interior feels calm and timeless. Hundreds of candles have already been lit. Their gentle flames flicker quietly along the walls, casting soft light upon carved wooden choir stalls, polished stone pillars, and the vaulted ceiling high above. The scent of warm beeswax fills the air. Somewhere near the altar, a small thread of incense rises slowly upward, curling gracefully before disappearing into the shadows overhead. The last rays of sunlight stream through the stained glass windows. Deep blues. Rich reds. brilliant golds, gentle greens. Their colors spread across the stone floor like painted rivers, slowly shifting as the sun sinks lower toward the horizon. It is as though the church itself is preparing for night. The monks take their places without a sound. Every brother knows exactly where he belongs. The familiar wooden seat welcomes you once again. Its smooth surface bears the quiet marks of centuries of use. You wonder how many thousands of prayers have begun from this very place. The abbot rises. He bows his head. The brothers follow. Then, gently, Vespers begins. One voice sings the opening words. Clear. Steady. Peaceful. Another voice joins. Then another. Within moments, the entire monastery seems to breathe together through music. The chant rises slowly beneath the stone arches. It does not rush upward. It simply floats. The melody moves with quiet confidence, filling every corner of the church before returning as a soft echo. Unlike the excitement of a festival or the triumph of a royal celebration, this music asks for nothing. It does not demand attention. Instead, it quietly invites stillness. The psalms speak of gratitude for the day now drawing to its close, of fields that have yielded their harvest, of birds finding shelter before nightfall, of the faithful resting beneath the care of their Creator. As the monks sing, you find yourself remembering everything that has happened since before dawn. The cold stone floor beneath your feet when the first bell awakened you. The candlelit beauty of matins. The warm simplicity of breakfast shared in silence. The peaceful gardens filled with herbs and vegetables. The careful hands of the scribes preserving ancient wisdom. The travelers welcomed through the monastery gate. The laughter of young novices learning their first letters. The quiet conversations beneath the orchard trees. The comforting meal shared with your brothers. Every ordinary moment now seems connected, like individual threads woven together into one beautiful tapestry. Perhaps that is why the evening prayers feel so peaceful. They gather the entire day together. Nothing is forgotten. Nothing is wasted. Even the smallest act of kindness finds its place within the prayer. The chanting continues. Outside, the light begins changing almost unnoticed. The brilliant gold of sunset slowly softens into gentle shades of rose and violet. Through the western windows, you catch sight of the first evening star appearing above the distant hills. One by one, the colors inside the church begin to fade. The stained glass windows grow quieter as daylight slowly surrenders to twilight. The candles now become the brightest light within the building. Their warm glow dances gently upon the ancient stone. A novice standing near the front hesitates for a brief moment before beginning the next response. His voice trembles slightly. Immediately, the older monks around him continue singing with calm confidence, gently carrying the melody until the young brother finds his place again. No one looks toward him. No one shows embarrassment. The community quietly supports him without drawing attention to the mistake. By the final verse, his voice has grown steady once more. It is another small lesson in monastic life. When one person grows uncertain, the others help him continue. The final psalm comes to an end. Its last note hangs softly beneath the vaulted ceiling before slowly disappearing into complete silence. No one moves. The silence that follows the music somehow feels even deeper than before. Outside, a gentle breeze brushes through the orchard. An owl calls faintly from the woodland beyond the monastery walls. Night has almost arrived. The abbot speaks a final blessing. His words are simple. They thank God for the labor of the day, for the peace of the community, for the kindness shown to strangers, and for the hope of another sunrise. The brothers bow together. The candles continue flickering quietly. One by one, the monks leave the church. They step once more into the cool evening air, where the first stars now sparkle above the dark outline of the bell tower. The gardens rest peacefully beneath the gathering twilight. The workshop stands silent. The birds have settled into their nests. The entire monastery seems to exhale after a day well lived. Yet one final chapter remains before sleep. Soon, the brothers will gather once more for Compline, the last prayer of the day before the monastery falls into complete silence, allowing both body and soul to rest beneath the quiet watch of the stars until the first bell calls them home again before dawn.
Walking beneath the stars. The final blessing has been spoken. The last note of the evening hymn has faded into the ancient stone above. For several long moments, the church remains perfectly still. No one rises immediately. No one reaches for the heavy wooden door. The silence is so complete that you can hear the tiny flame of a nearby candle softly crackling as it consumes its wick. A faint thread of incense still lingers in the cool air, drifting upward in slow, graceful spirals before disappearing into the darkness high beneath the vaulted ceiling. At last, the abbot gently bows his head. One by one, the brothers quietly stand. No words are exchanged. None are needed. The great silence has begun. From this moment until the first bell before dawn, conversation will cease entirely. It is not a punishment. Nor is it an attempt to make the monastery feel lonely. Instead, it is a treasured gift. A few precious hours when every monk is invited to let the noise of the day gently settle, like leaves sinking to the bottom of a still pond. You follow the brothers toward the great oak doors. The hinges move with only the softest whisper as they open. Cool night air immediately greets your face. The warmth of the church gives way to the freshness of evening, carrying with it the scent of damp grass, old stone, lavender, and the faint sweetness of jasmine blooming along the cloister wall. The monastery courtyard has been transformed. Only a few hours ago it glowed beneath bright afternoon sunshine. Now everything is wrapped in silver moonlight. The ancient fountain continues its gentle song, its flowing water reflecting the moon like polished glass. The stone pathways shine softly, worn smooth by countless generations of quiet footsteps. Above you stretches one of the greatest wonders of the medieval world. The night sky. Without electric lights to dim the heavens, the stars seem almost impossibly bright. Thousands upon thousands of tiny lights cover the sky from horizon to horizon. The Milky Way stretches across the darkness like a pale river flowing silently through the heavens. It is so brilliant that it almost casts its own gentle light upon the earth below. Several of the younger novices pause for a moment in the cloister. No one speaks. Yet all of them lift their eyes toward the stars. Brother Matthew does the same. His face is calm beneath the silver glow of the moon. He has looked upon this same sky for decades. Each night it reminds him how wonderfully vast creation is, and how peacefully small each human worry becomes beneath it. You continue walking beside him through the covered cloister. The familiar arches cast long shadows across the stone floor. Moonlight slips between the columns, creating alternating bands of light and darkness that gently guide your path. The silence is unlike anything you have experienced before. It is not empty. It is alive. The chirping of crickets rises from the herb garden. An owl calls softly from the woodland beyond the monastery walls. Somewhere near the pond, frogs sing their quiet evening chorus. A gentle breeze stirs the branches of the apple orchard, causing a few ripe leaves to drift lazily onto the path. Every sound seems clearer because no human voices compete with them. The monastery has become a place where nature herself speaks. You pass the herb garden once more. By day it had been filled with buzzing bees and warm sunshine. Now the flowers rest peacefully beneath the moon. Tiny drops of dew have already begun forming upon the leaves. Silver beads sparkle wherever the moonlight touches them. The lavender still releases its calming fragrance, though softer now than during the afternoon. Nearby, the rosemary stands motionless in the still air. Everything seems content simply to rest. Brother Matthew pauses beside one of the raised garden beds. He kneels slowly, his old joints protesting just a little, and gently brushes his fingers across the leaves of a young sage plant. He smiles. Even in the darkness, he knows exactly where each herb grows. Years of tending the same garden have made it as familiar to him as the lines upon his own hands. Without speaking, he quietly rises again. The lesson needs no words. Faithful care given over many years creates a deep and lasting familiarity. The two of you continue toward the orchard. The moon hangs higher now, bathing the rows of apple and pear trees in soft silver light. Their branches sway gently in the cool breeze. Here and there, ripe fruit catches the moonlight with a quiet glow. A small hedgehog rustles through the fallen leaves, searching patiently for insects before winter eventually arrives. It pays no attention to the passing monks. Life continues peacefully all around you. Near the old stone well, a cat sits perfectly still. Its bright eyes reflect the moonlight as it watches the shadows for the slightest movement of a mouse. For several moments it remains frozen like a carved statue. Then, with remarkable grace, it slips silently into the darkness beneath a nearby cart. Even the monastery's smallest creatures seem to understand the peaceful rhythm of night. As you walk farther along the outer wall, the countryside opens before you. Rolling fields stretch away beneath the stars. The barley harvested earlier now rests safely inside the granary. The vegetable gardens sleep after another day of careful tending. Far in the distance, a tiny lantern glows from a shepherd's cottage nestled among the hills. Soon even that little light disappears as its occupants prepare for sleep. The entire valley grows wonderfully quiet. You find yourself thinking back over everything this single day has held. Before dawn, the monastery awakened in darkness. The brothers gathered for matins while candles flickered beneath the stone arches. Morning light slowly filled the gardens. Bread was baked. Books were copied. Guests were welcomed. The sick were cared for. Young novices learned their lessons. The harvest ripened beneath the afternoon sun. Evening songs rose during vespers. Simple food was shared in gratitude. Now the stars watch peacefully over it all. So much has happened. Yet nothing felt hurried. Nothing felt wasted. The day unfolded naturally, one faithful moment after another. Perhaps that is the quiet secret of monastic life. Peace does not come from doing very little. The monks have worked hard from before sunrise until long after sunset. Rather, peace comes from giving full attention to whatever moment lies before you. When it is time to pray, they pray. When it is time to work, they work. When it is time to eat, they eat with gratitude. And when it is time to rest, they allow themselves to rest completely. The bell tower rises above the monastery roof, its silhouette standing dark against the brilliant sky. Tomorrow, long before the sun returns, its bell will once again call the brothers from their beds. The same prayers will begin. The same paths will be walked. The same gardens will be tended. Yet somehow the day will never feel repetitive. Every sunrise will paint the sky differently. Every season will quietly change the fields. Every guest arriving at the monastery gate will carry a different story. Every page copied in the scriptorium will preserve another fragment of wisdom. Routine, you begin to realize, is not the enemy of wonder. Sometimes it is the place where wonder quietly grows. The brothers slowly make their way toward the dormitory. The wooden doors stand open, waiting to welcome them after another full day. One by one, sandals are gently removed. Simple wool blankets are folded back. Candles are carefully extinguished until only the moonlight remains, shining softly through the narrow windows. No voices disturb the stillness. Only peaceful breathing gradually fills the room as the monastery settles into its deepest sleep. Outside, the fountain continues its endless song. The stars keep their silent watch. The moon glides slowly across the heavens. The ancient monastery rests peacefully beneath the vast medieval sky, waiting for the first faint hint of dawn, when another beautiful day will begin exactly where this one ends, with the quiet ringing of a single bell. The Great Silence. Carmpline, the last prayer before sleep. The final colors of sunset slowly disappear beyond the western hills. The warm golds and soft roses that only moments ago painted the monastery walls now fade into gentle shades of blue and silver. Twilight settles quietly across the gardens, wrapping every tree, every stone path, and every flower bed in a peaceful stillness. The monastery seems to breathe more slowly. The swallows that filled the afternoon sky have long since disappeared beneath the roofs. The blackbirds have finished their evening songs. Only the occasional chirp of a cricket rises from the grass beside the cloister, accompanied by the gentle murmur of the fountain that has faithfully flowed throughout the entire day. Above, the first stars grow brighter. One by one, tiny points of light appear across the vast medieval sky. Without the glow of modern cities, the heavens seem wonderfully alive. Thousands upon thousands of stars stretch from one horizon to the other, their quiet brilliance reflected in the still waters of the monastery well. Several younger novices pause for a moment beneath the open courtyard. One points silently toward a bright constellation overhead. Brother Matthew notices the gesture and smiles. The same stars, he whispers softly, watched over our fathers and their fathers before them. The novices lift their eyes a little longer. For a few peaceful moments, no one speaks. The night itself feels like another lesson. Soon, the familiar monastery bell rings again. Its voice is softer now, almost gentle. It is the final bell of the day. The call to Carmpline. The last prayer before sleep. The brothers slowly make their way once more toward the church. Their footsteps are quieter than ever. The long day has brought a pleasant weariness to every monk. Not exhaustion. Not fatigue born from hurry. Rather, the peaceful tiredness that follows meaningful work honestly done. The cool evening air brushes gently against your face as you cross the cloister. The scent of night blooming flowers begins replacing the fragrances of the warm afternoon. Lavender remains. So does rosemary. But now another fragrance drifts quietly through the garden, sweet honeysuckle climbing the ancient stone walls. The moon has begun rising above the eastern horizon. Its pale light falls gently across the monastery roof, turning the weathered stone almost silver. Candles flicker inside the church windows, welcoming every brother home one final time. You enter quietly. The church feels different now. Earlier, during Vespers, the last sunlight danced through the stained glass windows. Now those colors have disappeared. The windows themselves have become dark mirrors reflecting only the warm glow of candlelight. The great stone pillars seem softer somehow. The vaulted ceiling disappears into gentle shadows overhead. The silence feels deeper, more intimate. Several brothers kneel briefly before taking their seats. Others bow their heads in quiet reflection. The entire church seems wrapped in peaceful expectation. Carmpline has always been one of the gentlest services of the day. Unlike the joyful energy of morning prayer or the steady rhythm of the afternoon offices, this final gathering invites the heart to become completely still. The abbot rises slowly. His voice is calm, almost whispered. He begins with familiar words asking for a peaceful night and a safe rest. The brothers answer together. Their voices are softer now than at any other hour. No one needs to sing loudly. The church itself seems to carry every word. The psalms chosen for Carmpline speak naturally of trust, of lying down without fear, of finding shelter beneath divine protection, of resting after faithful labor. The words seem perfectly suited to the quiet darkness gathering beyond the monastery walls. As the chanting continues, the candles flicker gently. Their small flames sway whenever a cool breeze slips through the narrow windows. Tiny shadows dance across the ancient stone floor. The light is never perfectly still. Neither, perhaps, is life itself. Brother Matthew notices one of the youngest novices struggling to remain awake. The boy's eyelids grow heavier with every passing minute. His head slowly begins to nod forward before he quickly lifts it again. The old monk smiles kindly. He remembers countless evenings exactly like this from his own youth. There is no disappointment in his expression, only understanding. After all, the day began long before sunrise. Every brother has worked faithfully. Sleep itself is not the enemy. It is one of God's quiet gifts. The chanting comes to another gentle pause. Complete silence settles over the church. Outside, an owl calls from somewhere beyond the orchard. The distant sound drifts faintly through the open window before fading once again into the night. No one seems distracted by it. Instead, the owl's lonely call somehow becomes part of the evening prayer. Nature itself continues worshipping in its own quiet way. You close your eyes for a moment. The peaceful events of the entire day gently pass through your thoughts. The first bell before dawn. The candle-lit church. The scent of fresh bread. The herb garden glowing beneath the morning sun. The patient scribes. The cheerful novices. The travelers welcomed with kindness. The harvest field swaying beneath the afternoon breeze. The beautiful songs of vespers. Every memory arrives softly. None asks to be held tightly. Each simply passes like leaves floating upon a calm stream. Gradually, even your thoughts begin slowing. There is nothing left to accomplish today. No unfinished manuscript needs your attention. No garden requires watering before sunrise. No visitor waits outside the gate. Tomorrow will bring its own work. Tonight belongs to rest. The abbot quietly reads a short passage reminding the brothers to forgive one another before sleep. Any small misunderstandings from the day are gently released. No one wishes to carry resentment into the night. Within the monastery, peace is not merely hoped for. It is practiced. The old teacher beside you folds his hands. His weathered face, lined by decades of prayer, work, laughter, and quiet perseverance, seems wonderfully peaceful in the candlelight. He has lived through harsh winters, poor harvests, illness, the loss of dear friends. Yet none of those hardships have stolen the gentle kindness resting within his eyes. Perhaps true peace does not come from avoiding difficulties. Perhaps it grows from meeting each one patiently, day after day. The final hymn begins. Its melody is beautifully simple, gentle enough to soothe a tired heart. The voices of the brothers blend together one last time beneath the ancient stone arches. No single voice stands above the others. Each supports the whole. The music rises like a quiet evening breeze before slowly settling into silence once again. The abbot lifts his hand for the final blessing. He prays that every brother may sleep in safety, rise with gratitude, and greet another dawn with willing hands and a peaceful heart. The response is soft. Amen. The single word lingers gently within the church before fading into complete stillness. For several long moments, no one moves. The candles continue flickering quietly. Outside, the stars shine with quiet certainty above the sleeping countryside. The monastery has reached its most peaceful hour. Soon, the brothers will leave the church without speaking a single word. The great silence will begin. From this moment until the first bell before dawn, conversation will cease entirely. Only the wind in the trees, the fountain in the cloister, and the distant songs of night creatures will keep watch over the ancient monastery as every monk prepares to surrender the day to peaceful sleep. A new dawn. The bell rings again. The night passes gently. Beyond the monastery walls, the forests sleep beneath a blanket of silver mist. The fields lie quiet after the day's harvest, their rows softened by moonlight until they almost disappear into the darkness. The stars continue their silent journey across the heavens, one by one slowly fading as the hours pass. Inside the monastery, every brother rests peacefully. The dormitory is wonderfully still. Rows of simple wooden beds stand neatly beside one another beneath the great timber roof. Thick wool blankets rise and fall gently with each quiet breath. The air is cool and carries the comforting scent of clean linen, old oak beams, beeswax, and the faint fragrance of lavender that hangs in small bundles from the rafters to keep insects away. Only the occasional crackle from the dying embers in a nearby fireplace disturbs the silence. Outside, an owl makes one final call before returning to its nest. Soon even the crickets grow quiet. The whole world seems to pause. For a little while, there is nothing to do. Nothing to mend. Nothing to harvest. Nothing to copy. Only peaceful rest. Hours pass unnoticed. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the darkness begins to change. It is not yet dawn. The eastern horizon remains deep blue, almost black, but somewhere beyond those distant hills the sun has already begun its long climb toward another day. The stars nearest the horizon quietly disappear. A faint silver light spreads gently across the sky. Mist gathers over the monastery gardens. Tiny drops of dew cling to every blade of grass, every herb leaf, and every spider's web stretched carefully between the lavender bushes. The world seems to hold its breath. Then, the bell rings. One clear note echoes across the sleeping valley. It rolls over the orchards, across the vegetable gardens, through the quiet cloister, out beyond the monastery walls into the fields where only birds and deer are awake to hear it. The new day has begun. Inside the dormitory, no one groans. No one pulls the blanket over his head. The brothers have answered this same bell thousands of times before. Its sound has become as familiar as their own heartbeat. Brother Matthew slowly opens his eyes. The old monk smiles faintly. Another sunrise has been given to him. Another ordinary day. Another opportunity to pray, to work, to learn, and to serve. He quietly folds his blanket with the same careful movements he has repeated every morning for decades. Nearby, the younger novices awaken as well. One rubs the sleep from his eyes. Another stretches carefully before sitting upright. A third quietly helps his younger companion straighten a blanket that has slipped onto the floor during the night. No words are exchanged. The great silence has not quite ended. Only the soft sounds of sandals touching the wooden floor and blankets being folded fill the room. You rise alongside them. Although your body remembers the long hours of yesterday, it also feels strangely refreshed. The steady rhythm of monastery life has brought a deep kind of rest not merely to tired muscles, but to the mind itself. Outside the narrow windows, the sky continues brightening. The first robins begin their cheerful songs. A blackbird answers from the orchard. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster proudly announces the coming morning, convinced, perhaps, that the sun rises only because he has called for it. Brother Matthew smiles to himself as he hears it. The rooster has been making the same confident declaration every dawn for years. The monks quietly wash their faces with cool water drawn from the stone basin. The water is wonderfully refreshing. Its chill quickly chases away the last traces of sleep. Hands are washed. Hair is smoothed. Simple wool habits are adjusted neatly. Every action is calm, deliberate. Nothing is hurried. The monastery teaches that the first moments of the morning often shape the rest of the day. If they begin in peace, the hours that follow are more likely to carry that same peace. The brothers leave the dormitory together. The heavy wooden door opens. Fresh morning air greets them immediately. It feels cooler than yesterday's dawn. A thin veil of mist drifts lazily across the cloister garden. The fountain continues flowing exactly as it did throughout the night. Tiny droplets sparkle like diamonds where the first faint light catches them. The herb garden glistens beneath countless beads of dew. Lavender bows gently beneath their weight. Mint leaves shimmer. Rosemary releases its fresh fragrance as the cool breeze passes over it. The monastery seems freshly awakened, almost renewed. You pause for a moment beneath the opened sky. The eastern horizon has become a beautiful blend of pale blue, soft pink, and gentle gold. Clouds float peacefully overhead, their edges glowing with the first promise of sunrise. High above, the last visible stars slowly disappear. They have quietly completed another night's watch. Soon the swallows will return. The gardens will once again fill with bees. The bakery ovens will glow. The scribes will sharpen their quills. The novices will gather for another lesson. The porter will open the monastery gate. Travelers will arrive carrying fresh stories. The fields will welcome another day of careful labor. Everything will begin again. And yet, nothing will be exactly the same. A flower that was closed yesterday has opened. Another apple has ripened in the orchard. A manuscript has gained another page. A novice understands a lesson that seemed impossible only the day before. An elderly monk treasures another sunrise he was never promised. Life quietly moves forward. Brother Matthew notices the growing light spreading across the sky. He turns toward you with the same warm smile he has worn throughout the day you have shared with him. He finally speaks, his voice barely above a whisper. Many people spend their lives waiting for extraordinary days. He pauses as the first ray of sunlight touches the monastery bell tower. But God often hides his greatest gifts inside ordinary ones. The words settle gently in your heart. You look around once more. Nothing here seems grand by the world's standards. No castles. No armies. No glittering treasures. Only ancient stone walls. Simple gardens. Wooden benches. Humble workshops. Quiet prayers. Shared meals. Kind hands. Faithful work. Yet somehow this place possesses a richness that cannot be measured in gold. It is rich in peace. Rich in purpose. Rich in gratitude. The bell rings again, calling the brothers toward the church for matins. Their footsteps begin once more across the worn stone paths. Exactly as they did yesterday. Exactly as they will tomorrow. The rhythm continues. Not as a circle that traps them, but as a gentle spiral that quietly shapes them into wiser, kinder, and more patient people with every passing day. As you follow the monks toward the warmly glowing church, the first rays of sunlight finally rise above the eastern hills. Golden light spills across the cloister. The stained glass windows begin catching the dawn. Birdsong fills the cool morning air. The monastery awakens completely. And you realize something beautiful. You have not simply watched a day in the life of a medieval monk. You have witnessed a way of living where every ordinary moment, every prayer, every loaf of bread, every page of parchment, every shared smile, every quiet sunrise, and every peaceful sunset is treated as something sacred. The great oak doors of the church slowly open. Warm candlelight spills into the fresh morning air. The brothers enter quietly. The endless rhythm of peace. The great oak doors close gently behind the last of the brothers. Once again, the monastery church is filled with the soft glow of candlelight. Outside, dawn continues spreading across the countryside. Inside, time seems almost to stand still. The familiar chants of matins rise beneath the ancient stone arches exactly as they did yesterday, exactly as they will tomorrow, and exactly as they have for generations stretching far beyond memory. Yet something feels different. Not because the monastery has changed. Because you have. When you first arrived before dawn, the silence felt unfamiliar. The early rising seemed difficult. The slow pace of the brothers appeared almost unusual. Their careful attention to the smallest tasks seemed strange in a world where speed often determined success. But now, after sharing an entire day within these peaceful walls, the rhythm feels wonderfully natural. The candles flicker gently before the altar. Their warm light dances across the carved wooden choir stalls where generations of monks have stood before you. Some lived long lives. Others only a few years after entering the monastery. Many names have been forgotten by history. No statues honor them. No kings recorded their deeds. Yet every one of them added something precious to this place. One carefully planted an apple tree whose fruit still feeds the community centuries later. Another copied a manuscript that preserved ancient wisdom through wars and fires. Another welcomed a frightened traveler on a cold winter evening. Another patiently taught a young novice who later became a wise abbot himself. Their greatness was never measured by fame. It was measured by faithfulness. The chanting slowly comes to its peaceful conclusion. The final notes linger beneath the vaulted ceiling before dissolving into complete silence. For a few moments, every brother remains perfectly still. No one seems eager to leave. The silence itself has become another form of prayer. Outside, the sun has now fully risen. Golden morning light streams through the stained glass windows, filling the church with rivers of crimson, sapphire, emerald, and gold. The colors slowly move across the stone floor as the sun climbs higher into the sky. It is a scene the monks have witnessed thousands of times. Yet no one appears bored by it. Beauty never becomes ordinary when it is truly noticed. The abbot quietly offers the final blessing. The brothers bow together. Then, with calm and unhurried movements, they begin leaving the church. The familiar sounds of another day slowly awaken around them. The bakery fire is already being stirred back to life. Its first thin ribbon of smoke curls peacefully into the cool morning air. Somewhere in the kitchens, grain is being ground for fresh bread. The stable doors open as a young novice greets the monastery's patient oxen. In the gardens, tiny drops of dew still sparkle upon cabbage leaves and fragrant herbs. Bees begin emerging from their hives, ready for another day among the flowers. The fountain continues singing its quiet song just as it did throughout the night. Nothing dramatic has happened. No great adventure has unfolded. No battle has been won. No treasure has been discovered. And yet, you cannot help feeling that something deeply meaningful has taken place. Perhaps the greatest treasure hidden within the monastery is not something that can be carried away in a chest or counted in coins. Perhaps it is the discovery that peace is built from ordinary moments lived well. One loaf of bread baked with care. One visitor welcomed kindly. One lesson patiently taught. One page faithfully copied. One prayer sincerely spoken. One sunrise gratefully received. Brother Matthew joins you beside the cloister fountain one final time. The morning sunlight gently illuminates the lines upon his weathered face. Each wrinkle tells the story of many seasons, many harvests, many winters, many quiet mornings exactly like this one. He watches the clear water flowing endlessly from the ancient stone fountain. Without looking away, he finally speaks. "When I first came here," he says softly, "I believed I needed to accomplish something extraordinary." He smiles gently. "I imagined holiness would arrive through great acts." He watches a single fallen leaf drift slowly across the water. It did not. It arrived through ordinary days. He turns toward the herb garden, where young novices have already begun watering the vegetables. It arrived one prayer at a time. One conversation. One kindness. One season. One sunrise. The old monk falls silent again. His words need no further explanation. Everything you have witnessed throughout the day has quietly demonstrated exactly what he means. The porter opens the great monastery gate once more. A weary traveler appears upon the distant road. He carries a walking staff worn smooth by many miles. Soon he will receive fresh bread, a warm bowl of broth, perhaps a place to rest before continuing his journey. In the scriptorium, fresh parchment waits upon wooden desks. The quills will soon begin their gentle scratching once again. The baker needs another mound of dough. The gardener inspects the herbs. The beekeeper quietly checks the hives. The carpenter sharpens his tools. The teacher gathers his eager novices. The cycle continues. Not because yesterday has been forgotten, but because every new day offers another opportunity to practice the same quiet virtues. Patience, humility, gratitude, compassion, steadiness, hope. As the morning grows brighter, you slowly realize that this monastery is more than a collection of ancient buildings. It is a living rhythm, a place where prayer shapes work, where work becomes service, where service becomes kindness, and where kindness quietly transforms ordinary days into meaningful lives. The swallows sweep gracefully through the brightening sky. Their wings flash in the morning sun before disappearing above the bell tower. The bells themselves remain silent now. Their work is finished until the next hour arrives. Even they understand that life unfolds through gentle rhythms rather than constant noise. You take one last slow walk around the cloister. Past the herb garden glowing with dew. Past the fountain whose gentle song has accompanied every hour of the day. Past the scriptorium where wisdom patiently waits upon parchment. Past the bakery filling the air with the comforting aroma of fresh bread. Past the guest house where strangers become welcomed friends. Past the orchard where blossoms become fruit, and fruit becomes seed for future seasons. Every place now feels familiar. Every path tells a story. Every stone carries the memory of countless faithful footsteps. The monastery slowly disappears behind you as you step beyond the ancient gate. You pause one final time and look back. The morning sun bathes the old stone walls in warm golden light. Smoke rises gently from the bakery chimney. A bell tower stands quietly against the brilliant blue sky. The gardens shimmer with fresh dew. Somewhere inside those peaceful walls, another day has already begun. It will unfold much like yesterday, and much like tomorrow. Not because life there lacks imagination, but because the brothers have discovered something the modern world sometimes forgets. A meaningful life is rarely built through a handful of extraordinary moments. It is built through thousands of ordinary ones, each lived with care, patience, gratitude, and love. So, as you leave the monastery behind and return to your own world, perhaps you carry with you one final lesson from these quiet medieval walls. You do not need a monastery to find peace. You do not need ancient stone buildings or candlelit chapels. You do not need illuminated manuscripts or monastery gardens. Peace begins wherever you choose to slow down. To notice the beauty already around you. To offer kindness without expecting anything in return. To be grateful for simple blessings. And to greet each new sunrise as another quiet gift. The bells will continue ringing. The candles will continue burning. The gardens will continue growing. The brothers will continue praying. And somewhere, in the peaceful rhythm of another medieval dawn, a humble monk will rise before sunrise, whisper a prayer of gratitude, and begin another ordinary day. Knowing that ordinary days, faithfully lived, often become the most extraordinary lives of all.